A very good morning, everyone, and warm welcome to our conference to really shape the future, change the world, make it a better place. I am super happy to see so many of you attending our conference. Thank you very much to AmCham and the partners for organizing it. Thank you, Weston, for driving this initiative. And also, I am honored as being Violeta Luka, General Manager for Microsoft Czech Republic and Slovakia, to be your host today in our premises in Prague. And for some of you, as you may not know, here in Prague we have the second biggest development center in Europe, having more than 1,000 developers working in our premises, creating teams, business application, confidential computing, and many other super interesting things for the world. So I'm really proud to be part of the team and also to be contributing to the greater, let's say, wealth and IPO of the world from here, from Prague. So today we have quite a packed agenda. So I won't be keeping a very long, actually, introduction. We have today very special guests. So let me start by introducing the first one, Mr. Ivan Bartoš, Deputy Prime Minister for Digitization and also Minister for Regional Development. A very warm welcome, Ivan. And I will be handing over to you the mic in order for you to share with us your vision, the strategy, the practical thoughts and ideas in order to make Czech Republic a better place utilizing technology as part of the solution and not only.
So thank you. Should I stand here? I've got a few notes, which I would go through just not to forget anything. And maybe the best part would be the discussion and the question and answer regarding to the topics I want to touch. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, first of all, let me express my thanks that I was invited to this conference when I can share with you and discuss with you topics regarding the digital transformation. And I'm very much looking forward of the contribution to my colleague Martin Kivotz, who will speak about the issue of examples of the best practices in Estonia, which is a country with a great source for inspiration to many European countries. And we will discuss the idea of the flexibility and, let's say, the new approach to the complex problem of digitalization and creating the ecosystem where all of them members of the transaction are committing to, which is on one side government, on the other hand, it's academics, NGOs, and of course the business participants sharing the knowledge, but also being part of the public procurement. So I would go through a few topics in my keynote. I've got about 20 minutes, as I believe, which would be divided into a few things about what is the position of me and what's the targets for the digitalization within the Czech Republic, but also what are our priorities within EU and priorities regarding to the Czech presidency of Council of Europe. First of all, I have to agree, and everybody has to agree, and it was a mantra for like last 10 years at least, maybe more, depends on different states, that digitalization is not a matter of the geeks of some specific segment. It touches all the lives. Even someone's pretending he's not online, all his data, all the statistics that state is using, his taxes are online. And the ICT segment is significant and the most important part in 21st century also for the prosperity of the states, of the citizens, and it's got significant impact on the gross national product. When we were thinking of how the digitalization would be handled by the current government and of a government of Prime Minister Petr Fiala, who is understanding the importance of this area, we were looking in the history and asking ourselves, was the initial thought of creating the Ministry of Informatization or Digitalization was a good idea because we had it, then we cancel it, right? Was the role of a coordinator, Mr. Zurila from the previous government sufficient in order to achieve that interconnection between different ministries and agendas? We found out and we agreed even before the election that it's not sufficient. That the focus, the governance, the standards, but also the platform that everybody could contribute is of the priority. So we created the position of Vice Prime Minister for DG, which is somehow happened to be me. But considering the way how we're going to transform the Czech e-gov in the future, it could be, when I'm done with politics, anyone who's got enough competencies to cover that area as a member of the government, which is the important role, because then the DG, through my position, has the voice, individual voice with the specific competencies on the governmental level. And of course, we were talking about who is about to represent the main DG files and the main DG agenda, which is shared in many countries. I'm meeting a lot of times two ministers discussing the same topics, both from the same state. Usually it's somehow split between the Ministry of Industry and Trade and other office. Sometimes it's a interior agenda. Sometimes they've got depicted or dedicated person who is responsible or somehow is the umbrella person for that. For example, in Slovakia is also the Ministries of Regional Development who is representing the position of the Slovak Republic. And what do we have in a goal on the national level? As I said, and we will never get rid of what's so-called the resort-based approach to the DG for a particular reason. The agendas that is carried by the state towards business sector, towards citizen, it's usually tied with legislation. And individual ministers are dependent or they are responsible for the proper execution of that agenda. Which means, and it leads to us to the individual solutions on the ministry's level. But of course, as we know from the business segment, all the services are interconnected on a particular level. Either you shared your sign ID or you're providing whatever payments through the internet. And there are many agendas that are multidimensional, and a lot of data is shared among all the ministries. The idea that we had behind, and it started, but it wasn't finished, and we passed the legislation that deals with that. It's a citizen right to be served in digital way, or digital constitution, which is like a marketing thing with the aim to have everything online in 2025. Put us in position we need to accelerate. We need to involve many players who understand the processes and what the digital-born legislation is. And it's a challenge, though. It's critical. I feel somehow like Leonardo DiCaprio standing on the Titanic ship and hitting this icebreak 2025, but I hope we can achieve that. And the idea behind that is very simple. The data must be shared. The access to the data must be provided by the easiest way to the customers. And once I collect the data with the permission of the citizen, I will let anyone who got the permission use the data. There is a strong force that is leading us to that. And it's also, of course, the digital agenda that is on the European level. And especially filers. If I would depict one of the most important things from my point of view, and also for the business segment, or maybe two, but the first one is education. It's a capacity of the state to do its agenda. It's skills of the citizens to understand the agenda. Also to find out what the information and disinformation is, but also the people who will use the system, program the system, control, operates the system. So this is probably the biggest challenge for 21st century, because the technological change already happened, but even people of my age, my 16-year-old daughter, right? She's got the skills, but they're completely different ones, you know, having a cell phone-based services and everything. So, but we are in the digital age, but a lot of people are on one side afraid of the technology or are not able to use it, or while using it, they are actually risking the data is stolen, their identity is compromised, they are cheated in the business level or by anyone who just want to abuse their lack of capacity or lack of knowledge of using the technology. So this is probably number one that is important, to have a society ready for them changes. Second is security, which is connected to that, because once we go online completely, we are fragile, just like, you know, when we were coming here. If the lights wouldn't work on that intersection, which is quite complex over there, I would have a trouble to drive to the intersection, because I do remember all them rules that are applying when it's not in there, but it's hard to use them on an everyday basis. So then there's a security. One of the kicking thing, I believe, and we've got a smart prime minister who had it as his own priority, and I understand why. Having an option to identify within the internet services on the European level, on the international level, and to be connected with the government, EID and digital wallet. Many of you are participating probably on them projects that are delivering the commercial option to that, some single sign-ons, shared services, identification. We introduced in Czech Republic Bank ID just 2 years ago, which brought about 2.5 million users that are capable to use services of the eGov with that ID. But in the future, considering, even though transatlantic cooperation and purchasing and doing market, that is an important thing. Why? We may be very slow or reasonably slow with delivering the eGov services to the people, but what is the reason to have that option to be identified with a strong, secure identity online and offline, of course, but online, is that you can actually consume the services from the private sector freely. So when I have to give my car rental purchase for my upcoming vacation, I still have to copy my individual ID. I can probably sign through some of my IDs as well. But then you providing the information to the private sector, right? The different way to different services. So I hope we can unite on the technology that would be granted by the government on the matter of security, allow people to consume governmental services, and of course, be a part of that ecosystem of the worldwide trade and market and the services of the internet. I depicted that one because I believe this is the most important thing, considering from the consumer point of view. I'm happy about one thing in current European, even though transatlantic connection, that we have a discussion about the data of a customer using a service on the governmental level, in the public institutions, but also what is the role of European Union, its market, its citizens, and its consumer, and what is the good balance of right protections of them, and of course, satisfying significantly the business model of the services. And no matter how the governments are trying, not Estonia maybe, is that the business segment is always, you know, years in advance. So we want to keep up with that and use that, let's say, invention power and the quality of service on one side as an inspiration, but as a complementary thing, because it's not the state who should do everything. There are a lot of options. I mentioned education, but it could be any other that could be delivered by the private sector. Maybe not the final product, but also the path to the product, especially e-health and other. And we can be inspired by the solutions that are working in the commercial field. I will move very fast to the priorities of the Czech presidency. I mentioned already one, which is EID. We have a success already. I'm not sure, I've got my people here. Is it committed by the COREPER already? Or is it? So should I talk about it? Could I somehow jeopardize the let's say conclusions that we got last week? Yeah, we agreed on the digital decade just last week. So I'm very happy we've got pretty good people and the diplomats within the COREPER 1 and 2, and who are discussing the European agenda with our partners from different states, because we've got a deal about the pathway for 2030, not just comparing the individual states compared to each other in specific criteria, but we set up them goals. Everybody's asking me, what's that good for? And I say that because then the people who deliver can align their strategies according to them goals. And I'm in the sector of a business. I used to work for T-Mobile and other companies that deals with the government. They need to have a common understanding why and what are the options, what are the duties. Maybe it was a time frame of a specific agenda to be delivered. So this one is agreed, and I hope it would be just finally agreed by the end of this week, as I believe, which was the last information I had. There is Artificial Intelligence Act. That's a touchy one. I recently have a presentation for the Austrian audience on the Weird Music Festival about the opportunities and threats regarding artificial intelligence. It was kind of funny, one thing. People are still like living in the sci-fi vision of what artificial intelligence is and what it's supposed to deliver. And they ask me about some example because the thing is already happening, even though I'm saying we are 5 minutes to 12, right? But it's not. So I just borrowed the phone from one guy and show him how many examples of AI, which I still believe anything that's smarter than me is actually some kind of AI, on the matter of what it can calculate, predict, and how it can help me. And I show them how many AI of that narrow one-purpose things he's already using on his cell phone, which we calculated like 5 or 6 of them implementations in his Spotify recommendation, Facebook algorithms, and stuff like that. But I believe we can achieve the general approach in there as well. There are tricky areas, and you know them. Classification, the final definition of artificial intelligence of let it make it narrow, let it make more wide, right? We will see when it's going to move. We, of course, work with the individual positions of the countries, and we also do consult that with the TTC on the international level. And we need to align them positions, right? Many files that were introduced historically, DSA, DMA, were somehow like post-process reaction to what already evolved that we did not understand or we did not have a framework. I met yesterday people from Meta. We were discussing, and we, of course, got a different opinion on a few things. I would say few, not all the things, or several things. And we were discussing that the framework, especially with planning of the future development of a new services, is important because you don't want to build up entire business plan on something that would be somehow regulated against the initial business idea. So the sooner we know what is the landscape of the AI for next 10, 20 years, the better is for us all, right? For the politicians who are responsible for customer satisfaction and the data privacy and protect the citizen rights according to the business modules and stuff like that. And of course, for the companies who are delivering specific technology on the market. So we want to have a general approach about that. We maybe talk about it later on. There is a Data Act, of course, the very, very important things according to the economy, data flows over the ocean. I was actually asked yesterday the ambassador of Mexico, and I talked to ambassador of Canada. So anytime we talk across the ocean, we also talk like Canada and Latin American states in matter of that. But basically, the standards that we set together in Europe with cooperation with US would be, and I'm not talking to like Eastern non-democratic states, but would be the standards of the future world. So. We will see how we approach with the Data Act. There are still things to be cleared up, especially what is its coexistence with the GDPR. And those are the three that I mentioned. 4 was the digital decade. Cybersecurity. There is an important thing, and I got the chance to talk to colleagues even from US in Israel on the Cyber Week conference. There are two points of view on that. I share the first one, right? When we get to the point, and it was mentioned even by US representative on the Cyber Week, we can share the knowledge, we can share, let's say, innovations within the field. It's hard to think that the national states would give up the part of the national security because then it's an individual government who is responsible for its people. So there are ideas of having like pan-European SOCs on the place, right? Or what should be the cybersecurity unit, which is going to be, or it's probably already is, stated in Romania. So we are talking about, let's say, the framework rather than sending up the responsibilities of individual states for its particular cybersecurity on the national level. It is important, though, on the business level because there are no borders, right? One of them thing that is very, very important, a lot of companies and big companies are delivering services worldwide. So when there is a hole in the system, the hole affects entire world. And also, there was an interesting thing mentioned by, and I forgot the name, by US representative, which says if we would share the technology on the national level and the softwares that are somehow fighting cybersec actively or passively monitoring, one country compromised means all countries are compromised. So basically, there is a threat of being too much. Let's be paternalistic towards the states and having umbrella approach, because then when one wire is broken, the umbrella doesn't work on that side. So that was important, or I remember that notion because it is important. We still work. Let's have a robust solutions in the place, but be agile, be decentralized in matter of fighting cyber terrorism, threats, attacks, frauds, and stuff like that. There is also telecommunication. That's being discussed. This is a shared competence I do have with the Ministry of Industry and Trade. We are waiting the revision of broadband cost reduction directive, but we don't have that on places. I believe if nothing changed, and that will be probably from the European agenda. I just like slightly, because I didn't measure my time, touched what are the national priorities. It's somehow given through that we need to be done in 2025, but. You know that European Union knows that it's as a customer who is in the center, right? So his satisfaction of using a service is significant, and it's mandatory to actually go digital. We somehow forget about it in history. So talking UX, right? Talking like having it in a cell phone, it's still a dream. I still believe we would be able to have like the services that are friendly, that are customer based and dealing with the life situations. It's hard, and few of you are sometimes coming to our digital meetings. If we understand the waterfall delivery on the market of the big international companies, that state has this waterfall, but it's even more complicated, right? Because you've got many managers, ministries of different resorts. Then you've got the budgets that you have to fit into. There is very low of agile approach that you can introduce within, because the legislation and of course the courage of individual people who are responsible for delivery of a specific, it's very on low level historically, because you did something bad, you end up in front of the court, or you are being investigated that if it was a fair contest. So there are many things we need to tackle, but let's switch it and have it a customer based. Your business got the big disadvantage against government. People can choose different service. Within the state, you are kind of dependent what the state offers you to use. And we need to be a good thing. So we are happy we don't have to deal with the churn that much. But that's not the benefit that we have, right? That's like we are just like losing the pressure to do actually things. So many things are being postponed for years, but they should take place historically. We do run the digital transformation project, which is somehow slowing down how the time is passing, but we are ready for first 2023. And the idea behind that is, I don't know if you heard about the NUKIP, which is a Czech security office directly responsible to the prime minister with his own director, who was recently appointed to be like a big military chief. So it's got a new boss in there. And so this is the level of autonomy we want to have for the Czech digitalization. So providing the service to centralized systems such as registers, central databases, future national cloud, or providing the access to the private cloud. When the politics are leaving and passing and coming and leaving in whatever cycle, the NUKIP was always there and constantly building up its position and being respective authority. The thing is, since NUKIP provides only the security, it's hard for them to imply their work on the individual ministries in considering the security upgrade system and stuff like that. But with the specific, we call it DIA, Digital Agency in the future, who provides data to the individual ministers from the central registers, right? Even govern the EID in the future, which should not be stored like on one place, but we can discuss it later. They've got this, reason to be heard when you design new systems or uploading up a new service, because they will hold the standards, and they are enabler of having a data sharing and a smart forms on the internet. So it's going to be different position. And my goal is to have it like not even ministry or VP for DG dependent, but have it building up as a strong agency, like a UK module or maybe Estonian, but other countries do that as well. So let's copy the story, which was quite wild sometimes, and it was longer than I thought it's going to be, but the new KIP is an example how the knowledge governance architecture standards and should be held on the state level, not like one person running from the ministries and please could you deliver it that way, we are using a Gon service bus so you should use it too. No, so the standards must be able to enforce. And that's all from me. I was about to depict something funny on the very beginning. Resources. Yeah, we've got plenty. We've got plenty. Starting from the Cohesion Fund in Europe, which is touched by digitalization, National Recovery Plan based on RRF, and all other transformation resources. One thing that is important to understand is, and I'm a little bit scared, and I'm working on that, when I take a look on the National Recovery Plan, it says we're going to do for 40 billion projects in IT. But those projects will be delivered, deployed, up and running. Someone has to service them, someone has to develop them, provide a service on the customer level, call centers and stuff like that. So we have to think of the continuity of them projects. A lot of processes and the initiatives in Czech Republic started on European money, and after years are still dependent on the European money, which is wrong, right? We want to build something that does the work. It's got a continuity. So, and that's how I'm getting to that. So the cooperation with the business segment is also very important for us. And COVID showed us that many companies historically, in those 2 years, participated on the solutions that we have for the citizens, for the people of Czech Republic, for European citizens, but also we showed up in Ukraine that this cooperation is possible. It doesn't mean, sometimes I feel like somebody thinks that the public procurement is out of the scope. No, it's not, right? It's not. But if we work transparently and cooperate, we implement the best requests for the functionalities, and clerk cannot say the process on the individual level of a construction is like that. That's the construction guy, developer knows, what are the steps better than the one who is writing legislation, which is only one layer of the solution. So basically that future cooperation, the ecosystem of those 4 participants I mentioned in the beginning, that means somehow up-to-date politics with what they know and how they understand the world, academics, and I'm very happy for all that innovation hub and its financing that are coming even from the National Recovery Plan. Not only we will create a new specific curriculum for universities and the schools, which is also important, but the place where the business, NGOs and academics meet and talented people. And so this cooperation, this ecosystem is very, very important for the transformation. I believe business is more capable to address all them things. Government is less, so the cooperation in that particular matter is beneficial for us. But in the matter, on the very, very end of the story, and I used to work for T-Mobile and Newton and other monster worldwide, talking about US. We are finally also the customers of the state. So anytime we talk security with the security officers of big companies, it's like imagine yourself in the system that you deliver to the government. Would you feel safe in that particular matter? So please tell those guys, who are actually running the procurement that they also need this security feature in there, and they have to think about the future updates, because then it's your data running within the system. And I believe that's the thing I would like to end up with, that in the very end we are all also the customers of whatever government or the services that we are consuming on the internet. I'll be happy to answer your questions later on. I had many notes, so I just jumped to that because I found it kind of too long words and in particular cases a little bit boring. Thank you.
We didn't practice the logistics this morning. So thank you, Minister. I need to apologize to all the digital companies. I have many smart devices at home, but to use the smart devices effectively, you have to have a smart person. So my notes are on one of my smart devices at home. And so I'm using analog stuff. Digitization is not about digitization. As we all know, we have a violent conflict going on right now in Ukraine. But the real conflict that we've been dealing with for decades is to preserve and advance human progress towards democratic and effective governance, towards innovative businesses that serve a free and prosperous public. Digitization is a tool to achieve those things. And Estonia is on the front lines of that fight. And Martin Kavats, who's with us today, was one of the key people in helping Estonia achieve what it has today. And he continues to be a key person in Estonia and throughout Europe. He helped Estonia to define the challenge, and they had a lot of challenges at the start, we learned yesterday, to utilize their assets in the most effective way, and then to achieve some pretty spectacular goals. We've asked him here today to talk a little bit about that, to share some of his ideas, what worked, what didn't work. Martin, the floor is yours.
Hello everybody, and thank you. And it's, super happy to be in the birthplace of Kafka. Unfortunately, I'm not a politician, so I can be straightforward, and maybe in 20 minutes I can outline a few of these things that Estonia has achieved, but also that what could help others. As a brief background, I'm an architect, city planner, so I actually learned how to build buildings. I have a background in civil society and activism, so actually I started off organizing street festivals and bringing people together. Ended up in digital roughly 6 years ago. For 6 years I worked for the government and was responsible for everything digital and innovation related in Estonia. So kind of the Prime Minister's digital guy. It's kind of a job of an in-house visionary. So my job was to look at the digital domain. Like there's all sorts of fancy gadgets coming up, as you might notice. And my job as a government employee was to look at all of those things, filter out, and this is the most important part, what is and what is not important for the government. And then the difficult part, that is the most time-consuming, is to explain them, both to the society and the bureaucrats. So a few of these examples, I initiated Estonian AI policy, strategy and law, legalized self-driving cars, cybersecurity, participatory democracy, and quite a lot of other different subjects. And a few feedback to Ivan. Great that you got this European Union digital identity thing moving in the presidency. You mentioned a bit that it's moving in the EU level. And secondly, that AI Act is moving. These were all seeds that were put in place in 2017 when Estonia had the EU presidency. And somehow, I don't know how, but when all the leaders of the European Union left one room, they were all talking about AI. And now we've finally, several years later, reached a point when the bureaucrats have moved some papers and they're moving along. But, well, that was a wrong introduction. But Ivan's title is Prime Minister of Digitalization. I think one of the problems of digitalization is the word being used. As Weston mentioned, digitalization has evolved into being a goal in its own right. Like, your title is digitalization. What does that mean? No normal person ever understands what does it mean. And the problem with it is that people, both in the public and private sector, wherever, they tend to focus rather on the what and how and less on the why. So I would suggest that your title should be Deputy Prime Minister, or actually helping people, or getting shit done, or because digitalization is a tool in order to actually make the processes more efficient. And this is something that is constantly being forgotten, and also, as again mentioned in the previous talk, public sector has its own quirks. It's called procurement usually. And also there is some legal things. Then one of the things, and the main lesson learned from Estonia, is that it's nothing to do with technology. And it's everything to do with culture and mindset, of building a community of people who are actually open-minded towards change. For those who don't know the Estonian digital story starts already in 1994. The core components of the Estonian ecosystem were deployed in the year 2001, 2002. This is digital identity. Every Estonian has a mandatory digital identity and uses it on an everyday basis. One of the core things about public sector digitalization is that it's not the government that is digitalizing, it's governance. You need to build this together with all of the stakeholders from ground up. So if you let the bureaucrats to mentally onanate their wish list into a program, it does not necessarily solve the problem. It makes it even more complex. A broken paper-based process that is made digital is just a broken digital process. The most difficult thing in digitalization is that it actually you need to actually redesign the service delivery as well. And this is nothing to do with technology. This is about actually talking to the different stakeholders, collaborating on it. And there are some means, and I do understand Estonia in the beginning of 2000s was in a similar state, meaning that there is silos and people are, and also Estonians are very introvert and perhaps narcissistic, and they are not collaborating and not talking to each other. We are far in the north, and we don't have as much cheap air as you guys have here. So we are even more introverted. So, but there are some policies and tricks of acupuncture, how you can actually make this change. But in order to make this change, you need to have the right expectations as well. One of the problems of digitalization, both in public and private and wherever, is that people, people's expectations look at Silicon Valley and they see these strange type of exponential growth curves, and they imagine that, wow, we will have a new social security system and it will completely solve our problems. No, it won't. Gadgets will not help you. The digitalization process of government is cultural, not technological. So the process is not exponential, but linear. It will take time. But how do you make those acupuncture, those sharp moves in the right position in an ecosystem? Estonia has very strongly built on the idea that like nowadays, it's, well, one of the famous sayings from Peter Drucker is culture eats strategy for breakfast. Namely strategy, not strategy. The point is that from standing to moving, there is one step. And how Estonia started was that, sorry, we didn't have a document that was processed several years with many, like everybody was discussing. No, you agree upon 3 principles that the society should follow. You can fit that on one A4. You agree upon it together with all the stakeholders. And then you start building stuff. Having a user-centric, use case-based approach is very vital. Second thing is, in Estonia, a lot of this was done by young people in the government, and a lot of this was done by the civil service and not the politicians. The problem with politicians is that they come and go. But you need to have a strong civil service of young people, of experts actually building this. And you need to make the room for these people to come and work for the government. You kind of need to make public service sexy. I know that in a birthplace of Kafka it might be a difficult sell, but it can be done. As a background, since 2008, all governmental services have been digitalized in Estonia. We have backups since, again, 2008. All critical information log files have been backed up in blockchain, which means that I, as a citizen, am the owner of my data, and I can go and see who has been looking at my data, when and why. You can never do that in a paper-based archive. In Estonia, we built the system and the ecosystem on the once-only principle, which basically means that if I've given any piece of my personal data to the government, ever, the government should never ask that again. Probably it sounds familiar that every time when you go to a governmental well, wherever, meet the government or municipality, public sector, then each and every time you write your name, your address, your birthday. Why? The government already knows your name, your address, your birthday. Probably other stuff as well, stuff that you even don't know yourself. Then the whole ecosystem is based on the idea that each time when I log into a governmental website, the system itself asks all the other databases and puts together the correct information. Cybersecurity is highly, highly important. In 2007, we had the first statewide cyber attacks originated from Russia. Since 2010, we have the NATO Cyber Defense Center in Estonia. We developed the whole cybersecurity for NATO. In order to build strong and resilient system architecture and governance architecture, there is a few points. And this is ironical. Sorry, Katerina, and in this office of Microsoft, is that government should put emphasis on open source. Government should not necessarily, in the core components of governmental digitalization, should not necessarily buy from large-scale vendors, but should build on open source software. And yes, the private sector companies can come and help in all other specialized means. But for example, core components of any digital society, which is ID, data exchange, and data integrity as well. In Estonia, we have strong digital identity, also digital signatures. This is very highly important. For example, only the fact that we have digital signatures saves us roughly about 2% of GDP annually, which means we can have an army. So, data exchange. We use an open source data exchange system. Estonia is a proponent of open source and distributed ecosystem, a community-based development. We don't believe in Big Brother. We don't believe in centralized databases. We build systems distributed. Estonia utilizes X-Road, which has been operational since 2001 and currently deployed in 35 different countries globally. It's an open source, very simple REST API-based system. This means currently our data exchange system consists roughly about, I think, 1,500 different databases and servers, both from the public and private sector, which are united with our unified data exchange system. Just as an example, I heard that opening a company here in Czech takes about a couple of weeks. In Estonia, you can do it in 15 minutes. If you can imagine what the data, metaphorical way of explaining what the data exchange system does for Estonia is that you probably all know that in order to, again, for example, open up a company, you need to bring documents from one place and then go to another place and put all these documents together and then go to a third and fifth place. If one of those documents moving between one government institution to another, and if we calculate that one of those moves takes roughly about 15 minutes, like just taking a piece of paper from one place to another. If we put all those processes together in 1 year, then our data exchange layer saves roughly about 2,700 working years every year. This is like all those 15 minutes together on an everyday basis for all the society. You can imagine a civil servant working without sleep 2,700 years in 1 year, or okay, 2,700 very, very meticulous civil servants who don't sleep and eat and go to toilet and are not lazy. Then this is the amount of work time we save every year. Estonia has 1.3 million people. Czechia is a bit bigger. You can imagine that that number is bigger. Data integrity, I mentioned a bit. This is the blockchain we use. Because all of the Estonian distributed ecosystem, this is transparency technology. Estonia currently is third least corrupt country in the world. And this is all due to our fully and radically transparent ecosystem of public governance. The blockchain basically helps us, as an example, like you guys who are running the EU presidency and working with digital stuff, everybody knows that health data seems to be important and private and super secret. Then my blood type is A positive. I really don't care if you know about it. There's probably plenty of people in this room who has A positive type of blood as well. Then my problem is not that you know that I have blood type A positive, but my problem is that if somebody changes this in a governmental website and the data integrity is not there, in Estonia, when I would have an accident and an ambulance would come to me, then the ambulance would know already in advance all of my allergies, my blood types, all of those things, so that the service they provide would be more precise and accurate. This also works in Finland, by the way. If an Estonian citizen falls down or is having a baby, then all of those services work automatically also across the borders. So these are things that were done already 25 years ago. Nowadays, we actually work with more intellectual, more stimulating stuff, like Ivan also mentioned, artificial intelligence. Estonia has currently roughly about 20 narrow AI applications up and running in the public sector, which already make a significant savings, but more and even more importantly, they make a better service for the citizens. As one of the examples, EU grants us money to actually keep the grasslands in the countryside clean, and you need to maintain it, and the EU gives farmers money to basically mow the grass in a simplified way. Previously, this so the inspector needed to go to this very rural village to actually see whether this farmer actually had mowed the grass or not, and it was very time-consuming and expensive. We actually deployed a satellite imagery-based AI, like roughly, I think this was 4 years ago, which basically cost us roughly about 200,000 euros. And the first year, it already saved us 650,000 euros in 1 year. So that's a bit of example how artificial intelligence can actually make public sector way, way more efficient. And there is roughly 120 examples such as that. But more fundamentally, public sector governance, and if we look at Czechia today, then there's a potential to avoid lots and lots of mistakes that Estonia has been doing during these 25 years. Nowadays, when working with public sector digitalization, there modern approaches to software development is, yes, it's agile, but more importantly, it's important to build domain-driven microservice architecture. And for those who are not software architects, then in a simplified way, thou shalt not build monolith architecture, which in a simplified way is, if we can consider this as the Czech tax system, this whole round is the whole tax system of Estonia, or Czechia. By the way, in Estonia, I've spent probably less than 15 minutes together, all together in my lifetime, declaring my personal taxes. In Estonia, I log into a governmental website. I see how much the government owes me. It's roughly about, I don't know, 200 euros every year that I get just because I paid some kids' education. I have 3 children in my family, so they go to school and kindergarten and stuff like that. I log into website, see how much the government owes me. I confirm, I digitally sign it. I log out, one procedure, 30 seconds, and that money is on my bank account in 2 days. If this is the tax system of Czechia, then the problem of public sector ICT procurement is that, well, if, for example, the Deputy Prime Minister of Getting Shit Done comes up with a decision that let's digitalize the tax system, which is good because, you know, it saves money both for the citizens, companies, and actually government gets more money as well by not being evil, but just being transparent. Then when the decision is made that we need a new system, an idea comes, a decision is made, then okay, stakeholders come together, they mentally annotate the wish list, which is called public procurement papers. Taking these papers, like in a complex environment such as the whole tax system of Czechia, takes roughly about 2 to 3 years. Then you have the document ready. Finally, public sector never works without a proper document, as you know. And then there's the procurement. Probably some of the companies, maybe someone you in the room will win it and start building the system. Okay, there's never enough money and the system is complex. You need to test it and different methods. You split it up into sections. You do one part, second part, third part, and so on. Building the system so it's ready and working takes, again, 2 to 3 years. The systemic problem of this, and this is the very common way public sector all around the world does public procurement. The systemic problem of this is that since the idea was born and since the system is ready, it's about 6 to 7 years. And not only that the technologies have gone old by that time, but even more, society's expectations for service delivery have changed. So government can never meet the requirements of the society unless they use different type of governance architecture. And I would really recommend you guys to look into a project called GovStack, which is a global initiative together with Germany, ITU, Singapore, India, Estonia. We are building reusable digital building blocks for governments that are open source. But the idea is that thou shalt not build architecture like that, but please build architecture based on domain-driven modules that are reusable, so that not everybody needs to invent their own bicycle. This is, by the way, the biggest problem of public sector governments is that not invented here. Every government thinks that they're a unique snowflake. They're not. Bureaucracy in China, in Estonia, and Czechia is bureaucracy. It's also the same in Airbus, Bosch, and large-scale private sector companies. But what are we doing is that we are step-by-step automating all of the boring bureaucratic routines in Estonia. And currently with our new digital architecture, which is based on these domain-driven microservices, which is global and which is AI-driven, I think we are able to automate roughly 90 to 95% of all bureaucratic routines within the next decade. If you can imagine a government without, yes, the bureaucracy is there, but it's automated. But if you can imagine a government or any given large-scale organization that is not based on bureaucracy, but based on invisible automated service delivery that's delivered by you to a personal assistant similar to Siri, then this is something that is already up and running and happening in Estonia. But in order to make it, you need to actually find the champions, the young people who are good, motivated, and driven, and build a community around them, promote the good use cases, and be a kind of a sniper in detailing what you need to do. I think digitalization of the opening a small business is a very good use case to start from. Taxis takes a bit longer, and starting from, for example, strategical collaboration with the global partners on GovStack is very good, because Estonia also has the problem of being dependent on European Union funds for digitalization. The problem is that the cost for digitalization, the back-end costs are constantly growing because cybersecurity costs are growing and everything is growing. But if we can share, for example, the same identity module is used in Estonia, Czechia, and 15 African countries that we are actually deploying it already now, then everybody saves money because we share the same infrastructure and skills. But here are a few of the points, and probably I went over time because Weston is already here. Yeah. So I did not even scratch the surface. There is a lot to be done, but it starts with having actually a good architectural plan, but not necessarily, you don't need a strategy. You need to actually define the principles and actually start working. Because you can do these low-hanging fruits. You need to show the society that this actually can happen and it actually makes your life easier. Not that it's like boring and takes the jobs of every civil servant. It won't, but some. Thank you.
So we'll have a chance to ask questions out during the break because I want to make sure everybody has food. But the newly appointed Deputy Prime Minister for getting shit done may have a response. Do you have some things to...
I may react to a few things. You mentioned at the very beginning that you've got advantage that you are not politician, right? It's not about that you cannot, we are not able to actually name the empty or the things that to be pushed through, right? There is one question which we were trying to address historically. When we introduced there is a right to citizen be served through the internet or in a digital way. Till that time, we were facing the situation when you ask, for example, a Ministry of Justice or whatever ministry, that I want to have this service online, the direct answer from bureaucracy was, I don't have a reason within the law to do that. which means all the money I'm gonna spend on that, it's on my own decision, and I will be responsible if the money is not spent wisely, etc. So this was a big thing, right? Actually, have government acknowledge or understood on give a citizen right to be served. So that's why we call it digital constitution. And I'm pretty much deep in the environment that's running in Estonia. And we also historically tried, and it's on place, right, to have a standards of that you can deliver on everyday basis the individual services. Then, you were talking about the long-hanging fruits, which is actually atomic services based. Right? For example, I don't know how it's in Estonia. Maybe you directly get it from the bank account if you drive fast, right? In Czech, you collect those black points if you are a fast driver, and there is a service that you can anytime check how many those points are your own driver's license, and if there is too many, or I don't know if it's plus or minus, it's being suspended, right? It's an atomic service when you just like get on whatever page it provides, and then you say, this is me, Ivan, boom. And you've got a PDF into your associated box or email if you'd like to, and you know I still can drive because I did so many speeding and I'm all set, which is a cool example how it could work. Then there is like 85% of the services that they don't work that way, and that's where we are trying to get. So you are showing this, this particular environment, but we do have whatever. And I will just show you the architecture we have got here. You've got a user, right? You've got a user, whoever user, business user, citizen, which is also a business user, but whatsoever. Then you've got the channels, right? That he's accessing the information. I'd rather go mobile. We're not talking, laptops anymore. I see it in my daughter. She'll just like do the Tinder and all the stuff on the phone. But then we've got like centralized services. We've got a service bus in here, but the historical approach is we do have a system, complex system of the taxing, right? And it doesn't work on individual service level because you combine all the data within the system. And if you don't have the data, you always have to put it in. So idea that I'm trying to introduce here is that you have those shared services when all the who is collecting the data actually publishing the context, which is already in place in there, which means this is the data I'm providing, and those are the rules and the access rights to the data, right? And I'm saying, let's do whatever service it's more often used. The most often are the financial services, but it's a bad case, bad use case because it's complex. So I'm saying, I want to introduce these new services. I don't know, pet vaccination. It's kind of nice service. I want to have it here. Do I have the data that I need in the system? Yes, I do, but it's just my name as an owner. It's my address. It doesn't even know that I have a dog. What is the system that have a dog? Oh, it's this system. Do they publish the data to the central system? No, they not. So my use case is, what is the project or individual project, in-house project to actually make this happen, right? So we can actually work on the atomic services, and the space of the shared data is getting bigger and bigger because you deliver it actually pretty much agile if you set the priorities. From my point of view, and what I found out, I'm still on the level, on the check, but I don't have a scoring of the services, which are the most common use, and the costs. So I'll be happy pretty soon that I could say that the investments into digitalization is an investment, right? I switch the service here, which means I will save so many hours of the processing that particular case. With the financing, it's kind of hard. What we don't have in Czech Republic, we do have a lot of enthusiasm, some of us, is the trust to the governmental processes. And it's so significant in Finland, in Estonia. So you've got use cases in the construction in Finland when you can download my neighbor's house in BIM for 10 euros, and I can build it, right? You've got the taxing publicly. When as the Finland government, I wouldn't use the Estonian example because you're sitting here, when they ask the companies, could you provide us a tax info monthly? So first, no, we cannot. It's just changing a timestamp in the XML feed, right? I don't know what they are using for that. So they did. So like anytime you know what's your taxing score in Finland, and in the very end, you receive the information, this is your final calculation. And if you don't say yes, it's automatically contributed to that. We got it yearly. So the very day when we are dealing with the COVID crisis and when we want to give money based on how the people income fell down, we didn't know that. We don't know that you've got particular data within the Ministry of Social Care, which is relevant to calculate, if you are eligible for a particular state aid during the crisis, and combine it with your financial data. So my goal is, if we want to deliver fast, because the environment is in place, we don't have a cloud yet for the national services, and we don't have a few enablers in place. But the environment is somehow set up. So basically, we are heading to the similar situation, but still we are stuck with that. And it's so hard. And then we talk about the historical responsibility, and it was the way how the software was delivered historically, the big chunks of a portal solution to that. So we need to decompose that and maybe build them services on the green field of that particular way based on the domain. But from my point of view, and I'm not sure about the domain thing, some of them domains, and I'm software architect from enterprise architect. So those domains are especially modular, like of a purpose of the domain, rather of the nature of the data. So it fits to me more to use cases that you want to solve, because almost anything that you do, if you need to talk to government, right, is that you combine the data of individual calculations. This legislation. So there is a lot of work with the legislation changes, because it's actually hard-coded in the Czech legislation. You get a paper. No, it's not like that. But you need a stamp given by this authority, and you need a stamp. So just switching to it's not a document sending from a post box to another one, but it's a document on a particular place, and everybody's got access to it, and just like time-stamping it and sign it. It's still not the way that we move to. So there are so many things hard-coded in legislation. We always talk about, let's do the digital-friendly legislation. But we've got the histories of this Kafka approach, bureaucratic things within the legislation. And it took 2 years to actually push the law through the government, even if you've got a majority. So that's weird. And I somehow understood this is an invitation to participate in the GovStack. So thank you for that. And I will ask the next government if they could rename my position. But it's similar as what's my purpose in the politics is a well-being, right? We've got well-being. We can measure well-being. We actually provide to European Union all the indexes of well-being. Ask anyone within society what the well-being is. Everybody would give you a different answer. From my point of view, even the people who are not rich can be happy. You provide them sufficient services to have a happy, fruitful life. But we've got a ministry, New Zealand's got a ministry of well-being, and everybody understands that. We don't in Czech. So it's hard. So I hope I could at least be successful on the mission, have the shit done, even though my name is weird.
The second panel, one of the things that Martin mentioned last night when we were talking about Estonia is that because they are considered a digital leader, they're able to bring in companies that want to test their new technologies, to do pilot projects on their new technology. So what we wanted to do today was to ask a few companies to talk about the technologies that they could potentially use in the Czech Republic. They're going to be short presentations, 5 to 7 minutes long, and then we'll have hopefully at the end a chance to have a conversation about it. I'm going to turn it over now to Katarina Anamagna, who's going to introduce the projects.
Thank you very much, and welcome back from the well-being session. So you heard the words of Minister Bartoš, how important is the cooperation between public and private sector, and this panel is all about that. We will have 7 companies coming here with great digital projects, which have a great potential to make a difference and impact in the society within the next 3 years. We will have Microsoft, Cetin, Amazon, Panasonic, Citi, Visa, Vodafone. And having said that, let me introduce the first speaker. It will be Violeta Luka. She is the general manager of Microsoft Czech Republic and Slovakia. And she will talk about enabling digital economy through skilling, automation, and low-code, no-code. You also heard the importance of skilling being pronounced by the minister. So, Violeta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Katarina. So I will try to be short and in the same time less corporate, as we have the previous speakers. They created quite a great energy, and I think we have some standards to catch up and also to relate to. So. On the first slide, actually, I used the picture of surfing, not because I am surfing, although I wish I would, just because I really believe that in order to drive transformation and positive change, we would need not to fight the waves of change, but rather to ride them. And in some situations, even to anticipate the course, the height, in order to be able to proactively act and react. So this is the reason why I use this. Also, although it's not that corporate. So I won't comment on the detail on each and every piece on the slide, as we can share afterwards, I suppose. But I use this diagram in order to showcase that there is a strong correlation between the 5 dimensions of the digital in the business, in the government and public services, in the infrastructure, between the digital sector and the human capital capabilities, actually, and capacity, with economic and societal gains. And there are several studies in Czech Republic, in Europe, and of course in the world, which are showing strong correlation between the 5 dimensions and the sustainable growth, happier and healthier lifestyle of the citizens. So actually, what I would like today is to tackle 2 big opportunities and challenges in the same time, namely skilling and automation done in 2 ways, utilizing specialized companies or utilizing different software and frameworks which can enable to be more agile as government or organization. So there is... I would use 3 facts, which may be a bit controversial, but in the same time they are quite accepted by many, let's say, stakeholders. So the first one is related to the DESI index ranking we have as a country. We are number 18 in the European Union, and we have quite a reasonable position, I would say, better than my country for sure, but I'm not sure if it's the best one we would like to have. I know we can maybe comment how it is calculated, looking at the dimensions related to connectivity, infrastructure, integration of the digital services, the delivery of the public services, and of course the capabilities. But beyond the controversy, I think what is more important, looking at this digital economic and societal index, which is calculated by European Commission. This is 2021 data. What is more important is that there is a correlation between the DESI rank and the growth of the GDP. Actually, a recent study by Deloitte is showing that one point increase in the ranking can bring 0.65 points of the GDP. So this is quite a motivating factor maybe for us as a country and joint stakeholders to look at this and to understand what kind of actions we could take in order to drive this growth in the GDP. And the third data point I am having on this slide is the fact that according to the same methodology and ranking, in Czech Republic we have 31% of our people having digital skills above the average, which is higher than in other countries, because if you are looking at the 5 dimensions, actually we are doing better than European average on human capital capabilities and the integration of digital technologies in our business. So this is actually showing a lot of maybe some challenges we might have, but also it's showing a lot of opportunity for us together. And actually looking at what is happening in the country, the pace of innovation, the pace of transformation, and the fact that in Czech Republic we have up to 30,000 open IT roles at this moment. I know there are, if you look on the internet, you could find between 20 to till 30,000, but I used some correlation data, and the midpoint is actually, I think, more accurate. And having 30,000 people missing, I would say, from the ecosystem, it's showing quite a challenge and an opportunity as well. 8 out of 10 companies actually are having struggles to find the right tech talent in a reasonable time. And of course, because of that, we are fighting to attract talent. We are sourcing talents from different countries around the world. To make a parenthesis, in Microsoft, we have 43 nationalities working in this building. And we are bringing more and more people from outside Czech Republic because we are hiring between 30 to 50 people per month. So we need to have the ability to source these talents. So actually, the only way to overcome these challenges and to manage the opportunities we have in front of us is to drive skilling, upskilling, and reskilling. And at Microsoft, we have this skilling and education in our DNA as a company. And I'm happy to say that we are working with schools, with universities, with the government. We have quite a strong cooperation with different NGOs in the country. And we are happy that we are able to drive positive change. But of course, looking at the data points and the needs the country has, actually, we realized a couple of months ago that is not enough. So we wanted to have a bolder ambition as a company, together with key stakeholders in the market, to drive skilling and upskilling in the society up to 500,000 people in the next 3 years. And in order to do this, we started to amplify one of the initiatives we started with a couple of stakeholders, among which Good Call, the recruitment company. Actually, we started an initiative more than 2 years ago to specialize and to hire business application specialists. So back then, there was quite a big shortage in the system in order to have business application specialists. And we said to help our customers and partners, what if we are creating a platform which will actually enable students and people who would like to reskill themselves, who have basic, let's say, skills and capabilities, in order to become business application specialists. And we have done this in 4 steps. By providing a learning platform with free courses. Second of all, by then providing some assessments and being able to drive more upskilling with respect to specialized functions. Then, of course, there is the certification step, and then there is the hiring step. And in order to motivate people, we worked with our partners actually to put in the platform jobs, open roles, so to create the end-to-end, let's say, flow, not just to say, okay, come take the sources, certify, and then what? So we wanted to put also the jobs in the system. And initially, we were a little bit more shy with that. We had only a couple. Then we went to 100 jobs in the system. And then the whole motion became bigger and bigger. And we expanded, actually, in the last 4 months, we expanded this project from business application towards cloud and digital skills. We have in the platform now 2,000 people already enrolled and in different stages of learning, or let's say part of the journey. And I am very happy to see that is getting more and more traction. And we would like to see this one getting stronger and stronger, because in the end, we will get more people certified with the modern skills, which then can help the entire ecosystem, not only Microsoft. To speed up, here I had more, let's say, more details around how we done it, but basically it was pretty straightforward. We utilized modern engagement tools, because in order to reach out to young people, or in order to have a broader reach in the country, we wanted actually to be closer and to have a model of engagement and content which is digestible, which is relatable, which is more friendly and easy to use. The new platform is ITDE, and you can check it if you want to see how it works. And I would be happy to, to receive proposals. Maybe we can advance this even forward together with some of you. Going forward, the second solution to the current opportunities and challenges we have in the Czech Republic are related to automation, either pure automation projects or low-code, no-code approach. I have today very, let's say, 3 short case studies to showcase what we implemented and what the impact actually we deliver by doing those projects. And when we say low code, there are different platforms. They can provide the approach, and it became actually democratized, the access to the tools. If I'm looking at the offerings we have from the vendors. But beyond that, I think in order to be able to drive a low-code, no-code approach in your company, it's very much linked to the mindset and to the change management, because it's not about the tools only. It's about the people, the process, and the technology. So one of the things I observed working with our customers, in order to drive a big transformation in the way we, let's say, we manage our applications, it required to convince the few board members and also to convince the IT department environment that the change is actually needed and beneficial for the customer or for the stakeholders. I have a retail customer case, which was one of the, let's say, the big bets we had in the beginning when we started this project. So the case study is not public, this is why I'm not putting the name, but it is a retail company with more than 2,500 points of sales, more than 15,000 people, with quite a complicated applications landscape, maybe not the most complex one, but pretty complex. And we have identified that if we would like to utilize Power Apps, which is the, let's say, the low-code platform, we would be able to drive 2.7 business value for the customer by making, let's say, efficiencies in the IT operations department, in the business operations, and also by driving additional benefits towards agility and time to market. And the return of investment, if I'm looking at on a 3 years time span, it's 1 to 10. So it was quite beneficial and straightforward for the CFO and the CEO actually to take the decision to drive this. And imagine that we can drive this at larger scale, and we can identify this kind of low-code, no-code approaches in many companies, both in private sector and public sector. There is, of course, a Microsoft solution, but there are others. So it's not, I'm not mentioning this for Microsoft's own sake, but rather to encourage people to look more with more agility to what can be done. The second project I'm showing to showcase today is related to the regional authority of the Moravian Silesian region. Actually, they worked with UiPath, the RPA company, the robotic process automation, and actually they worked on a simple project initially to automate 2 processes which they were taking quite a lot of time on the communication, emailing, and task management in their teams. And they managed to, by implementing this, to drive 8,000 hours per year saving, and the return of investment was super straightforward as well. And this actually project was shared by UiPath in a couple of conferences, and it inspired other companies actually to drive this, these initiatives in their own companies. Of course, moving forward, what are our opportunities? Some of them, they were mentioned already, and we are totally on the same page. We have resources to leverage in order to drive digitalization at scale and positive impact. I think it's very important to focus on the outcomes, on the growth, on the specific things we can do. Sometimes we need to start small in order to get confidence and to get the traction, and then, of course, to scale the projects going forward. By having a digital-first approach, I would say that we need to further advance the legislation framework in order to enable the digitalization in a safe space, in a safe manner. I am totally appreciative of the work which NUKIB is doing on the cybersecurity front to enable us to actually become a digital country in a safe way. Definitely the cybercrime and the negative impact associated to it is super huge. And we see examples more and more around us. And actually, related to the comment which Martin made half an hour ago, I do agree that sometimes we may not have the perfect strategy in front of us. This may take a while to get it and then to align all the stakeholders to it. But if we have the right pillars, the right principles, and then we start executing, this may get a difference. And then, of course, there is the purpose-driven approach, which really makes the difference. And I believe that we can motivate people around us to really drive the change, although it's quite difficult to drive it. It's in our human DNA to resist change. But by providing the purpose, the why behind the change, I think we can totally make it. And all the time have in mind simplification, optimization, and see what we can automate and how we can redeploy resources and how we can allocate them in order to infuse innovation, to infuse creativity in what we do, and to keep the people engaged and motivated, and in the end, more happier. Thank you for the attention, and I'm open for giving more details afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Violeta. And as the next speaker will be representative of CETIN, Mr. Juraj Šedivý, Chief Executive Officer, and Juraj will talk about creating the high-speed networks for digitization.
Thank you. The topic I will address is not as sexy as we discussed so far, as was very discussed so far. I'll be talking about the infrastructure, but maybe a few words on who Cetin is and who am I. Cetin is the former PPT Telecom, for those who remember, who became SPT Telecom, who became Telefonica, then became Telefonica O2, then became O2. And it separated its infrastructure back in 2015, and we operate the largest mobile and the fixed infrastructure in the Czech Republic. In the meantime, we got bought by PPF. We are owned 70% by PPF and 30% by Sovereign Fund of Singapore, which is our strategic partner. We also operate for other operating entities in Bulgaria, Serbia, Hungary, and Slovakia, the largest mobile operators or mobile networks there, except Slovakia. I was cyclically appearing over the last 30 years in the entity which I mentioned in the management, so I'm now managing the group. The topic which I'd like to discuss is related to something which we consider to be an inevitable prerequisite for the digitization, which are the networks and how the data are transmitted over the networks to enable the functions of the applications. And if you allow me, rather than using the slide, I will use the picture which was drawn by the Vice Prime Minister. I still don't dare to use the new proposed title. and Martin. And let me try to use sort of an anecdotal example of how we perceive our role and what our role was 10 years ago and what we believe is becoming now as the network or data connectivity providers. A number of years ago, we would get a request from the customer to connect point A to B. It used to be 8 megabit per second symmetrical leased line dedicated. We didn't have a clue what the customer was using it for, because the customer then combined it with other bits and pieces of the connectivity infrastructure, and they placed their applications. Sometimes it was only voice, sometimes those were already emerging applications, and we were just responsible for the performance of this particular connectivity and its latency and the speed, and that was it. And obviously we wanted to avoid the downtimes, and the availability of the network was important. What is a typical case now, specifically with the largest companies or the application providers? They would come to us and they wouldn't request this, but they would tell us we have an application. And that application is based on microservices, like suggested by Martin. It has, the microservice which is resolving this function. That microservice is using another microservice which is using this function. To facilitate that function of the application, we need to drive 1 terabit per second speed between the 2 points, because of one particular reason. Those components of the applications are usually not placed in one physical place. This can be placed in Helsinki, this can be placed in Frankfurt, this can be placed on Microsoft Azure cloud. I don't know whether I can name some other cloud providers, but we have a particular case where we have the Azure, the application ourselves, which we use for monitoring the functions of the network related to the television propagation in 4 European countries, but the application itself is sitting on Amazon Web Services in Frankfurt. So what the architects and designers of the applications are telling us, well, we have the application and we need the connectivity underneath that application which will facilitate the functions. And we believe, and the experience is, that if you are talking about the latency, for example, between the 2 points which are 500 or sometimes 5,000 kilometers apart, and if we as network providers say it's 10 milliseconds, milliseconds, it can, on the application side, mean completely different thing. Because if there are 1,000 transactions to be facilitated by that application, that latency may be too high. Or if we increase it, that may exponentially delay the time how the screens of the applications are appearing for the ultimate users. It's complicated by the thing that the databases of those applications are sitting in different places, or they need to be made redundant. So we need to drive huge volumes of data between far distant geographical and topological points. Sometimes the databases need to be placed relatively close to or the content needs to be placed relatively close to the points of the actual consumption, specifically when it comes to the video streaming, when it comes to the content-rich applications which require very low latencies. There are a number of applications which are mission critical in a sense. If there is response of the application beyond certain limit, beyond certain delay, beyond certain point, it can be actually life-threatening. It can be dangerous for the processing in logistics center, or it can be dangerous for the transport systems. And more and more of these applications are appearing on our landscape, and we, as the network providers, are becoming actually the partners for the application providers. And more so, we need to design actually the connectivity of the network, the features of the network, the supervision of the network, which is linked to the requirements and the specifications of those applications. So what we are trying to say here is, when talking about the very, very ambitious plan of digitalization in the Czech Republic, with the number of applications which we believe will be content-rich, will be very demanding when it comes to the transfers of volumes of data, and when it comes to other parameters like bandwidth, speed, redundancy, capacity, latency, and jitter, which are the technical parameters on the network side, which are, however, directly translated to the functions of the applications. Let's start this discussion early, and let's start this discussion together, because the private segment has the capabilities, has the capacities, has the know-how how to help the government to actually achieve what needs to be achieved. One important thing to mention here is that the lead time we need in the networks to actually build the networks suitable for the future generation applications is not 3 months, it's not a year. I mean, for us to be able to build up the capacities to design the proper architecture of the networks, we need to see 3, 4, 5 years ahead and forecast the increases of the traffic. And specifically in some areas, the traffic growth is exponential, or sometimes it's 5 times over 3 years, 5 times higher. So for us to be able to build the capacities, we need to know early enough. Another aspect of this is the topology of the network and dynamic capacity management. The applications sometimes use capacities in peak hours. They can use 3 times as much of volume of traffic for 2 hours a week. So it's absolutely nonsensical to build the networks for the peak capacity for every single application. So similarly to hyperscalers, similarly to cloud service providers, the networks themselves need to build the capability to allocate the capacity in a dynamic way. If not done properly, and that's our clear experience, it will result in a redundant, in a negative sense of that word, capacity, so wasted money, interoperability issues, suboptimal network performance, and at the end of the day, poor users' experience. Those networks also need the management. They need 24/7 supervision, and they definitely need, as was mentioned a couple of times here, the security parameters. And the surface of potential attacks of the networks, because of their topological, geographical spread, is huge. I mean, we are all over the place in the Czech Republic. We have 45,000 kilometers of fiber optics network. We have numerous edge data centers. We have numerous access points to the network from the mobile or wireless side. So the ways how the attackers can actually threaten the functionality of the networks are numerous, and we need to have very, very reliable system of how to protect the network. Again, this is the area where public and private sectors are already discussing things together. NUKIP is doing the excellent job in terms of defining, what are the critical aspects of cybersecurity, what are the tools to defend the networks, and ultimately also, whether the components of the network are from reliable or less reliable suppliers. So the 2 messages I'd like to carry here, again, not as sexy as the applications themselves, but let's think about the undercarriage, about the highways through which the applications will be running, and the data of those applications will be running. And again, let's do it together. We would like to invite our peers, T-Mobile, Vodafone, O2, Microsoft, Amazon, to really discuss how to approach and obviously work closely with the government in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juraj. The next one, I would like to invite Nina Bibi. I hope I pronounce correctly, right. So Nina is a senior advisor. She is in charge of international regulatory affairs, project keeper at Microsoft and, Amazon. Somehow, we spent evening together yesterday and, so, yeah, okay. So, of course, Amazon. And Nina will talk about closing the connectivity gaps with satellite broadband.
Thanks very much. And first, let me thank AmCham for inviting us here and including us in this program, and Microsoft for the venue and the hospitality and the introduction. I'd like to work with you someday, so we'll see how that goes. So I want to, you'll all be familiar with Amazon, of course, but what I'd like to talk to you about today is a new project, relatively new, called Project Kuiper, which is our satellite broadband network that we plan to launch over the next few years. Sorry, I have this thing. Okay, thanks. So just to give a quick overview, Amazon is obsessed with customers and the requirements that they have. And what we know is that there are still something like 2.9 billion people on the planet that don't have access to the internet today. Many fewer by percentage in Europe, but still there are areas not covered by sufficient connectivity services today. And so Amazon is putting together a satellite network, a low Earth orbit, non-geostationary network, which is part of a new generation of satellite networks that can deliver performance, scale, and impact in a way that I don't think we've really seen in satellite networks before. We plan to launch over 3,000 satellites that will serve tens of millions of unserved and underserved customers around the world. These are going to be principally in sort of developing areas of countries, so those areas that have less infrastructure built out by current providers. Because of the low Earth orbits and the high-tech antennas that we're designing, Kuiper will be able to provide fiber-like service with critically high speed, high throughput, and low latency. And this is something new to be able to achieve for satellite networks at this particular level. Our global network will include gateway stations that will provide secure data uplink and downlinks, route traffic to internet exchange points and points of presence around the world. We will use software-defined networking to coordinate beams and allocate bandwidth to places where it's most needed, and we'll be able to provide complete end-to-end encryption. We'll also be working with other partners on the terrestrial side to help make this all possible. So in terms of the guiding principles behind this network, these really follow the core principles at Amazon overall. And again, that starts with the customer first. So we start with the customer and work backwards from there. And again, we know that there are many customers whose connectivity, whose access to the internet is not sufficient to be able to meet the goals of digitization, to be able to meet the goals of access to all the wonderful services that we can envision that governments may provide or that the private sector may offer to consumers. We know also that affordability is one of the reasons why more people are not on the internet or don't have sufficient access. And so we have a long-standing commitment to achieving low prices for consumers. We also have very much in mind being a secure and responsible provider. We want to ensure that customers' information is protected at all times and that traffic can be securely transmitted through all elements of the system, be they in space or on the ground. And finally, we want to be a good steward of both the environment in space and the environment on Earth. And that follows really our commitment to sustainability overall. And I think you may hear a little bit about that in my colleague's presentation later. So just a brief note on who our customers will be. We plan to serve household users, as well as small businesses, large enterprise and transportation, but also public services and emergency services. So these may be schools, hospitals, emergency responders, disaster relief response, and importantly, e-government services, which we talked some about earlier. Another customer is existing telcos. So we plan to work with mobile operators to help them extend their broadband, their 5G connectivity services in places where perhaps the infrastructure has been too expensive for them to build out. And we will also be working with different providers on the ground to help integrate all the elements of the network. So just a brief note on our sort of coverage. We plan to launch our satellites in 5 phases, beginning with the sort of band that you see titled 1. So we'll be able to serve sort of North America and much of Europe in the first sort of, let's say, wave of our service rollout, and then we'll work inwards towards the equator. This particular coverage allows us to serve up to 95% of the world's population, and we're considering follow-on networks that would allow us to have polar coverage and to sort of densify the network accordingly. I want to focus on something here that we're very excited about, particularly because of the link to European industry. Kuiper recently announced that we have secured up to 83 launches of our satellites on 3 launch providers, which includes Arianespace, of course, a very significant European launch services provider. And these contracts will allow us to launch the majority of our network. We have options to add additional launch capability through those providers. But we've invested billions of dollars in these contracts. And this is actually the single largest commercial procurement contract for launch vehicles in history. So this is very exciting. It also shows our commitment and the sort of will that's behind this network within Amazon, because we really invested in it, and we're showing that through these contracts. What I wanted to say about the sort of European aspect of this is that people may see Amazon as an American company. Of course, we serve users around the world, but our launch contracts really sort of highlight the fact that our procurement contract for this launch capability will enable hundreds of suppliers and highly skilled jobs across 13 countries in Europe. So the space industry is truly global. I think that is the Kuiper network in a nutshell. And we hope that as you are all familiar with Amazon, you'll become familiar with Kuiper in the coming few years. And we're very excited to bring this capability to you, help get those unconnected or underconnected communities online and able to take full advantage of digitized services, however they may be provided through government or the private sector. So thanks again to AmCham and to Microsoft for having us here.
Thank you, Nina, and thank you, Amazon. The next one on the stage will be Panatony, Czech Republic and Slovakia. And I would like to invite the Managing Director, Pavel Sovička, to give us his speech about how digitization can improve land development and streamline construction permitting.
Perfect. Good afternoon. Still alive? Not sleeping? I think the most analog guy on this panel or on the presentations. We develop real estate infrastructure. We develop for data centers, logistic companies, industrial companies, and that's what we do for a living. We are a US-based company. I'm sorry, I will skip the videos because I didn't know that the order is 7 minutes, so I will be skipping them. But our background is US-based company. We operate in Northern America, Europe, and now we are starting also in India. We have developed more than 50 million square meters. I have to just improve the presentation. That was announcement last night. And we are collecting a lot of data around Europe. When you look at the square meters we are developing at the moment, we are having more than 2 million square meters under construction. In 2022, we will be delivering 3 million square meters across just European operations. This is Karl Panatony. There's a lot hidden in this saying, yeah? Every building, every square meter has its story to tell. A lot of data collected also. How the buildings are permitted, what features do they have, and also there are a lot of things to learn from other countries. Why they do it that way, why do it other way. And I hate when we speak sometimes to the local politicians and governments that they say, here it's different. It's not, it's everywhere the same. But I think the most important for us, for our business in digitization, is that we will open a lot of new questions and start thinking about the base. I think that was what Martin was saying. It's about the whole approach, about the thinking of the people, politicians, but also the citizens. What do we want to change, where we want to get, and how we get there? Because the digitization is just the tool for implementing the things which we want to change. Familiar with this? Have you played it? That's the first digital urban planning, yeah? That's the SimCity. When you look at that, first thing, infrastructure. I think Juraj would confirm that we need to align ourselves with the cities, with the state. What infrastructure do we want to build? Do we want to build it as we go? We need to repair that pipe, or we are thinking for the longer future. So the infrastructure will be already prepared for next generation. When you look at that, in that simulation, you have to find the balance. You have to find the business model, great, I would say, cooperation with the society, because you know the bad smiles when you don't really satisfy your citizens. But you need to control your income and expense of the city, right? The budget. I think we should prepare with some software company a Czechia mode, Czechia update of this, which means that you can't control your income. The current tax system in the Czech Republic doesn't allow you to really control how much you earn, how much you make. So you just control your expense. That's what you can do. So SimCity would not be so much fun. This is the base. This is where we should start the discussion, right? These are the numbers. How many municipalities, how fragmented our decision-making is. If we don't change this, we can forget that we will be country for the future. When I'm going for some presentations at the Association of the Cities and Towns in Czech Republic, a lot of their representatives will tell you, we are a rural country, we are a village country. We should stay like that. It's unacceptable for me. I'm not sure how about you. But when you look at Estonia, guess how many? How many municipalities they have? Decision-making bodies, around 60, right? So find 6,500 top managers to lead the cities, to lead the towns. You won't find them. Find the young talent for every municipality. It's impossible. So we need to start here with the change. And that's great about the digitization, because these are all the things which we have to tackle before we start correctly implement all the steps. This is something which we believe the digitization can help with. We are all discussing, I'm not sure whether we got no, we don't have the pointer. But at the top, you've got the building permit. Everyone is talking the building permit takes too long. Yeah? It's pretty simple to digitize. You can put the norms in. The building will be compared to the norms. But then we have also the planning permit. Yeah, that can be digitized as well. AI process. EIA process, that's the environmental impact assessment. That could be digitized as well. But what is the base? The base is the master plan, the zoning. At the moment in the Czech Republic, the zoning and master plan is just indication what you could do, but doesn't set the rules. If the rules are not set, it's very difficult to digitize the rest. Because the AI, the software, has to compare when you apply for the new permit, whether it's meeting the regulation or not. But most importantly, it's motivation. It's motivation to develop. And we are missing that. That's coming back to SimCity, where when you speak to 6,500 mayors, very difficult will be to find at least 500 motivated mayors to expand their towns, to invest, and to make the city growing. Because if they don't do anything, it's the most safe way for them. So we were looking into that. What are the reasons they are not motivated? They can't really, they don't want to make the decisions. They don't want to grow. They don't want to invest. And they don't welcome any business to be developed. And this is the comparison we have done with KPMG back in 2019. And this is the income, 15 million Czech crowns per annum from the property tax in Czech Republic. That's the only income the city has. From the same factory in Germany, they would collect 1.5 billion, so 100 times more. When you speak to the towns and villages in the southern Bohemia, like Lipno area, they will tell you, we've got like 20, 30 million Czech crowns to reinvest every year from the taxes we collect. Our neighbor just behind the border in Austria, he's got, for example, 200 million Czech crowns. How can we compete with them? How can we make our cities better? So this is the thing where we have to start. We have initiated back in 2019 the changes. We were pushing on the ministries, and we have succeeded in a way because there were shortcuts presented. We hated those shortcuts. So we asked the Česká zemědělská univerzita. We asked them to provide us with the study. What is the share of the property tax? Because everyone was screaming, yeah, let's increase the property tax in Czech, right? So when we compare to European Union and the collection of the property tax compared to the whole revenues of the taxes, we were collecting only 0.5%, right? So right at the back. But what was the reason? The reason is that our tax system allows the mayors and municipalities to increase the taxes, but they didn't want to increase them because they would have to do it for the whole city, for the whole village. So we were pushing as the first step of the, I would say, global change of the tax system. We were pushing the ministry to allow the municipality to set the tax, property tax, and the, I would say, multiplications per building, per use of the building, which we have succeeded with. But there was untapped possibility of 33 billion Czech crowns. We were only using 7.8% what we could collect at the time. But simply the mayors and the municipal representatives were afraid that they will not be elected again. So they didn't raise the taxes. So we were missing 33 billion Czech crowns per annum just because they were too close to the people which would not give them vote again. If we would utilize the full potential, we would be at the level of the, I would say, middle part of collection of the property tax. We are not yet there, but we see in a lot of locations where we develop that the mayors, the municipalities agree that they will increase the tax just for the industrial zone. And why not? Yeah, there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of hassle generated by the production in the area, but there was no tool how to collect those taxes. Now it is. It's now approved. And we see that happening. We have developed now for Amazon in Kojetín. Mayor, of course, got ready for it, and he will collect 20 million Czech crowns per annum just from the property tax. In the past, they will have to increase it for all the people. To digitization, there's a lot of data collected. We have a lot of data which we can share with the state. I think amazing software and platform is Argis. I'm not sure whether anyone from you is using that. But there you can find the master plans, information about the flood zones and everything. There are loads of municipalities also already inserting there the BIM models of their constructions, sewage plants and so on. And we use it also for our site selection and preparation. We are happy to contribute to it as well. If we build the infrastructure, we are happy to contribute it to the system so anyone else can look into it. The whole Amazon building in Kojetín, that's the model, was modeled in BIM, which also can help to manage the associated infrastructure of the town. We do the heat maps. We are now working on the drainage system piping and mapping. For example, on the drainage system in Czech Republic, there's a plan to just do the map of it. We don't know what we have in the ground, right? So the state said it will cost 30 billion Czech crowns. It will take 10 years. So we said we will help with that. We will do it in the locations where we are, and we will contribute it to the state. For us, it's few 100,000 Czech crowns cost, and we are happy to contribute it. And I think that can be done and used to better manage the agriculture, to plan better. Yeah. And we are excited about making the approval process more predictable. Because I think Microsoft is preparing new data centers in Prague. Good luck. Because currently, despite the fact there's a master plan, it doesn't mean that you can build. And that's, I think, the most important thing. Let's digitize the master plans. Let's import there as much information as we can and regulation, so the next steps can be fully digitized and predictable. They don't have to be super short, but they have to be predictable. So that's the message from us. And I think you all, what you wear, what you have in your hands, gadgets, they all went through the warehouses, through the production facilities. So we need to digitize, but don't forget about the analog world. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavel and Panatony. And I would like to invite Munir Naniye from City. And Munir is Central European Cluster Head and City Country Officer for Czech Republic. And Munir will talk about giving local businesses better information for business planning.
Great. Thank you. Dobrý den. So you're probably wondering what a bank is doing up front here, but I just want to sort of set the stage a little bit. So as a financial services company, many of you would know Citibank. We are in 96 countries around the world. And importantly, we have a big strategy in the bank called the City for Cities. And what we try and do with that is we try and bring capital to cities to make them more efficient. And this could be direct funding, it could be technology solutions. And when we believe a city is efficient, it brings more acceleration of capital, more economic flow, and as a result, the country kind of progresses. So I'm not a technician. So I've got my partner on the line, Neil Patel, who actually runs this platform I'll discuss with you. And I want to thank AmCham for hosting us here today. Yeah? So with that, I'll just flip across to the first slide. I'll demonstrate something to you very shortly, but it's really around showcasing investment opportunities where we can bring statistical and demographic data with the goal of improving economic growth. It's a long sentence, but what do I mean by that? So within City, we've got something called a City Ventures Lab. And what we do is, it's based out in the West Coast. We actually invest in a lot of technology that we incubate internally. And then if it works, we either buy equity in these companies and or we then distribute to our clients. So within City Ventures, we worked actually with end users, and we've got pilots now running, and I'll show you a demo in the US, in New York City, and in Milan. We have a pilot running in some African countries and some Central European countries. We are trying to actually encourage, depending what the country's mission is, we work with platforms to attract investment. So in the US, in New York City, there was a very big the mayor wanted to make sure there was sustainable housing and development creation. So we worked with agencies in New York City to bring data into a platform, which we could then show to our clients and investors where they could invest in the city. So it's leveraging architecture. In Milan, I'll take you to the demonstration. The Milan government wanted to say, basically told us, we've got many municipalities in Milan, probably not as many as we got in the Czech Republic, but the idea was that each municipality was to encourage investment to building and property development. So how do we tell investors where these properties are and what they're doing for the country? So we actually brought in the architecture neutrally to support them. Let me take you through a demo which will give you more explanation of what exactly I mean. So can I just switch screens here? I want to go to the web. Yep, I think there. I think our page is open. Fantastic. So here we are. So this is an online demo I'm going to walk you through. So this is where capital meets public growth. And Neil, by the way, if I speak off script, just jump in, yep? So this is a Milan example whereby we basically go into a collaboration with the Milan partners with a product called City Builder. And it gives you data. So if you look at the first data, it gives you neighborhood data. It'll tell you basically demographics by age, by education levels within a certain area. In this case, it's Lambrate, which is in Milan. It then gives you data around projects. What are the projects that are going on in Milan at the moment? So it gives you all the neighborhoods in Milan. It then shows you a sort of a zonal view of the map, and you can zoom in on the projects. You can then go into the comparative data. So you can compare one municipality in Milan with another one, side by side. And if you start exploring that, so let's look at the neighborhoods in Milan. So this is Milan, for example. We can actually look at the different sectors in Milan. So for instance, if I pick one of them, so I'm going to go into the neighborhoods in Milan, just to show you what there is, okay? So we are going to a center called Duomo. So if you look at Duomo, for example, it's telling you where Duomo is. And if I go into details of Duomo, it'll tell you basically how many residents are in Duomo. So if I flip through there, it gives you the breakup of Duomo. It tells you the description of the neighborhood. It gives you all the information around commercial activity levels, economic housing, data ranges, etc., etc. And this data is picked from public sources as well as city data. So it's projecting that out to the person coming in. Demographics, it brings transportation, how far is it to the city center, public transportation, the driving time to the airport, for example. And then it talks about other neighborhoods in Milan that you can compare it with. If I go further and I say, let me try and look into the projects in Duomo. So in Milan, there's actually an innovation center called Mind. So this is an ICT center. And here you can actually look at the land size of this project. It tells you basically residential, commercial, civic amenities. It then breaks down the project description. It then goes further down to say if you want to download this project prospectus, you can download that. You can email it to yourself, and it gives you all the details around the project and the side projects. So if I want to view all the projects, I could click on that, and I can see all the projects that are in Milan. And I can click in any one of these and go into details. So if I click into Afori, for example, it gives me all the data around the Afori projects. And you can zone in. So, and it gives you all the data points I talked about. So the reason this is important is that if you're an investor, and you're saying, look, I would like to invest in Italy, and I picked Milan. How do I find out what are all these projects in Milan across different project sectors? So in this case, I actually went straight into the ICT projects, but if I went back a little bit further behind, and I said, let me try and learn more of the, give me 1 second. One moment, just go back there. And I go down to projects. It lists down all the projects that are, so right now there are 10 projects in Milan. I can pick any of these. For instance, I picked up Mind. I could pick one on Meloka, for example, and I can check everything on it. So as an investor, depending on what your KPIs are, you can go in, you can find data, information, what's going on, the project rate, etc. And then depending on how we can kind of cross-sell the information to our investor base, they can successfully invest in Milan. So one will ask, what's in for us as a bank? There is nothing for us. So what we do, we provide the architecture. we link up to all the databases, we evolve the data as we get more information, and we open it up to to our customer base. So this is running obviously in Milan, as you can see. We have one in New York which runs. We have some in Africa, some in other parts of Central Europe. But these are ones that are actually quite prominent. Neil, I don't know if I missed anything out you want to point out.
That we have and also the regions that we cover. For example, an investor may just come in and use it traditionally to decide that they want to learn more about a project, or they may use statistical and demographic information to make an assertion where they feel that actually they now know more about an area. They know that there is a district that has a high level of people that are of working age and are sufficiently qualified to justify them to decide to establish a new factory in their area. So the term investment can take multiple forms: direct investment in the project or investment in the area because of the information the user has found out about the area.
Good. And then thanks, Neil. And just to close it up, we have a little video I can quickly play out there, which is... there's a video that was there. Maybe it's there. Yeah, this one. Fantastic. This will probably just summarize what I just spoke about. It should take a minute or so.
Communities can thrive when their needs are met. And right now, communities' needs are more important than ever. That's why we created City Builder, to make it easier to invest in more equitable, sustainable, and inclusive communities, and see a return that's positive for everyone. City Builder by City puts everything you need to identify place-based investment opportunities, all in one place. You can search for active developments by location, community need, or tax incentive program. From there, you can look through projects all around the country, find out about other ones nearby, and even explore census tracts where you can learn more about socioeconomic needs that communities have. With City Builder, you can filter through all kinds of opportunities in real estate, business, and infrastructure. Explore various investment details and see exactly where your dollars are going. You can compare multiple places at once, side by side. Look at demographics and opportunities and see all the data on one screen. And of course, you can share details with your team or take the next step by contacting project representatives and coordinators.
Great. So I think you got a sense of what City Builder is, and hopefully we can try and do something in the Czech Republic. So Weston, thank you very much. Okay.
As the next one, I would like to call the Country Manager Petr Polák from FISA. And he will talk about generating more revenue per tourist. Very important stuff for Czech Republic.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me. Thanks to Microsoft for hosting us. We are a relatively fresh member of MCHM, and we are quite happy to be part of this family. So thank you very much. I learned that I have like 20 seconds per slide. Fortunately for us, I have a few technical ones which we can skip. And in general, our interest in tourism is unreal and rocket science. At the beginning, I can't resist to promote Visa a bit. So yeah, we are the card company. We have 3.4 billion cards in place, and we are connecting those cards to more than 54 million merchant locations. We are a sixth most valuable brand in the world. I found it very friendly gesture to be one spot behind our today host. Let's see who's gonna host us next year. Czech Republic globally represents less than 1% in perspective for Visa in both volumes generated and revenues. So we shouldn't be even on the radar. Right? It's actually wrong. We are very much on the radar. Czech Republic is number 5 globally in penetration of contactless transactions. So this very simple innovation, pretty clicked with Czech population and become quite of a norm. And now we are learning or teaching the world how to do that. The second item which put us on the radar is actually very much connected what Violeta already presented. 31%, which was mentioned as is the number of the people who are more technologically advanced than is normal. We have similar figures. 31% is the penetration of mobile payments in Czech Republic, which puts us on the second spot in the Europe, and just those bloody Spaniards are 0.5% ahead of us. You know, so it's obvious that for Czech population, the reasonable innovation, which is simple to adapt, simple to understand, and puts all the needs we have into these bloody devices, works very, very well. We are locally just a team of 30 people. Some of my colleagues are even responsible for Slovakia and Hungary, but we are trying what we can. You probably know us, 52%-ish of you is having our card in your wallet at the moment, and our ambition is to expand this share even in the future. Why we are interested in tourism and travel at all? We have the ambition to be the best way how to pay or get paid globally and for everyone, you know. And where this ambition is put under the test is especially when people are traveling and are tourists. COVID struck this industry very, very hard, and obviously struck our revenues as well. So it's kind of self-explanatory why we want to look into the space, you know, and trying to somehow refuel and restart this industry in total. And we are doing it relatively successfully across the globe. How this project usually works? Well, we are a little bit of a data freaks. We are sitting on a huge chunk of data. We know where our clients are spending. We basically know when and what is following their spending. So we, at the beginning, we usually look into the data and try to find some patterns which we are able to use for the predictions and other analysis which needs to be taken into consideration. Obviously, after every single digit, there is usually soul behind, you know, so we are just not relying just on the data. We tend to ask our clients as well what they really think. For the data, we really need the transactions to happen. So we probably see the transaction being happen in Prague, but we don't really know if the traveler then decided to go to České Budějovice, but unfortunately the infrastructure wasn't there and they were not able to pay with card there. So we usually follow with a survey, and we try to find out what was the goal of the trip, what works there and what did not. I already mentioned that acceptance is a crucial part of our business. We run it for quite a long time, and we have even several programs here in Czech Republic. You may know Česko platí kartou program, which is running for several years now, and which help us to put more than 50,000 new terminals in place. But we're still trying to focus mainly on the acceptance, because it seems that especially for travelers, this is still the pain point, and we still have locations in Czech Republic where you basically can't pay with card, and we don't really want to learn from these surveys I've mentioned that the trip to České Budějovice was maybe more difficult than bringing a ring to Mordor or whatever. We usually follow with that joint marketing, so that's something I will touch later on. When you have all this information in place, you are in a very good position to communicate to the travelers, you know, and possibly give them a message, you know, how to travel, what to see there, and probably how to spend their expenses in a best way. As I said, we have some experiences with looking with the travel bodies across the globe. We start from the city level, we work on national level, and thanks to our recent discussion with Czech Tourism, I strongly believe that you will see Czech Tourism logo on this slide pretty soon. This is actually the global slide, so we will promote the Czech Republic again, not just thanks to contactless usage. When we look into the numbers and specifically look for the years which were impacted by COVID, in the first quarter of this year, 2022, we saw a very positive trajectory. Unfortunately, if I would look into a second quarter, which is super sensitive right now because we are a publicly traded company, so I cannot communicate it widely, but I would say that the curve is a little bit flattening out, you know. And the question obviously is what's behind it. We can see the impact of the Russian invasion of Ukraine definitely, and its negative impact on some travelers who still consider Europe being one big country and maybe are a little bit reluctant to go closer to a war conflict. And obviously, current level of inflation has another negative impact on travel as such, and rising cost of fuel, accommodation, food, and other items obviously have a significant impact on that. So we are looking into this very closely and trying to predict what happen next. For a relatively tourist-heavy country like Czech Republic is, this is definitely a space to explore because a significant amount of merchants and entities which are depending on travel are definitely close in this space. I already mentioned our cooperation with Czech tourism. Actually, we are now in a, let's call it second stage of the project. So we already defined some objectives we want to achieve. Obviously, we want to support both international and domestic spend for the Czech tourism. We want to develop a sustainable tourism. You know, this is definitely a question which was quite high on the agenda right before the COVID, where we maybe a little bit overheated the travel as such. And if we want to restart it now, we should do it maybe in a little bit smarter way than it was before. And this gives us a good opportunity to do so. Obviously, we want to understand the behavior of tourists, you know, and general impact of the setup of the tourist industry at the moment. So obviously, all the bans, all the restriction in relation to COVID, and obviously the war have is way to say into this mix. Obviously, we want to attract even the premium customers. This is something which is kind of a trend now that countries are fighting for the travelers. You know? So with the overall decrease in travel, every single traveler now needs to decide which country, which city, and which place they will visit or not. And this is definitely something where our focus on the marketing and proper communication towards the travelers is starting with. What we provided to Czech tourism was something which we called Visa Offers Destination Insight. It's basically a platform which is linked directly to VisaNet, which is our processing platform, and in a real time gives you an opportunity to look into the statistic performance of a Visa card in the world. So this is something which Czech tourism is now working with, of course, with our help. This is obviously a paid service, but it was our, let's say, the donation to Czech tourism to give them this platform for free. And now we are running the analysis which should provide us with the data to properly focus our capacities and, of course, some funding across the Czech Republic and probably show us the main corridors of the tourists becoming in the Czech Republic and guide them properly through the country. Maybe focus a little bit less on Prague, which is obviously a hotspot in a global perspective, but finding an opportunity to show these travels even a region of the Czech Republic and properly show them how to get there without having some feeling that this is not safe for them. If they are strictly depending on local travel agencies, and give them a little bit more breathing room to do that. This is just a basic insight into how this tool looks like. So it's basically a web-based application, nothing very specific or complex. Based on a very simple query, you are able to get into the information which is relevant for what you are looking at. And Czech Tourism is now working on that, obviously with the help of our consulting, visa consulting people who are at hand to Czech Tourism. And now we are in the later stage of the analysis. So we we will keep you in loop what's going on there. I already mentioned sustainable tourism. It's kind of a difficult topic right now with every single city kind of screaming for more tourists to come in. I already mentioned that we now looking into a possibility to do the tourism or restart the tourism in a bit smarter way. The first pilots we ran were based on the fact that if the client would use their Visa card in a specific location, Visa then would contribute to a specific local municipality body which would help the place as such. You know, specifically for Prague, we are now in discussion with several partners. We are talking to National Museum, we are talking to National Theatre, and obviously we again are in strong cooperation with Czech Tourism, and we are asking them for a recommendation where we should basically focus with our funding. And what we want to do is to basically, for the visitors of Prague, make their visit to be worth, and maybe they should left something behind them to help the city even after they left. And thank you very much. I hope that I'm done.
Thank you, Peter, and thanks to Visa. And now I would like to invite Richard Stonavský, External Affairs Director from Vodafone. And Richard will speak about rural infrastructure and 5G cities. Richard, over to you.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you for inviting me. Frankly, it was very pleasing to hear Mr. Bartoš, he left unfortunately, to hear as a government member to speak about citizens as customers. I have to say this was the first time I've ever heard this from a member of the Czech government, and I hope this will be a positive trend. So about Vodafone, I hope I don't need to introduce us. We are responsible for these evil gadgets, as was mentioned, to make it alive. But not only that, we are the largest telecom group in the world. Yes, China Telecom is bigger, unfortunately, but it will probably stay so. We are present in 17 countries of Europe, both directly and indirectly with our partners. We and the Deputy Prime Minister mentioned it already. There are big targets and big goals ahead of us in Europe, mentioning the digital decade by 2030. But not only that, there are other challenges. We still have COVID. Unfortunately, the bloody war broke up. And when we speak about digitalization, we should understand that the digitalization has a very wide impact. I will just mention one example. With introduction of digital agriculture tools, we can provide a saving on fertilizers about on average 20%, which in the current cost environment in agriculture is, I think, extremely important. When we speak about digitalization, I think the key, the basics, should be seen is the infrastructure. These are our goals. We are currently covering 70% of the population with 5G. Our target in a couple of years is to enlarge to 88% of population. A couple means, I think, mid or end of next year. And with the fixed network, we are currently at 34% at 1 gigabit. And with our multi-billion project, which we are starting just now, we will be upgrading and extending our network to more than a half population of the Czech Republic, where the technology would be capable of up to 10 gigabits per second, which is something we understand could be a very big boost to the ability of the Czech businesses and households to use the digital solutions. I think everybody understands that in urban areas, internet is of good quality, but one of the purpose pillars of Vodafone is inclusion for all, and we are convinced that, and we are on the same wavelength with Amazon on this. People shouldn't be disadvantaged on their access and accessibility of broadband if they live in cities, in the rural areas, in villages, in the very vast populated areas. And this is the direction we want to take. Of course, this doesn't mean that we will forget about cities, municipalities and urban areas. The increase of capacity and speed will also be visible in the cities, but I think what we want to say is that all citizens and all businesses in the Czech Republic deserve good internet. 5G, we think it's not only a buzzword, it's really a new platform, and actually it's probably the first technology, the first mobile network platform where the services are not designed by the mobile provider, by the mobile operator, but by the users and businesses using the services themselves. And I want to show you some examples. I'm really proud that we joined the government initiative called 5G Cities a couple of years ago, and we won, or we decided to participate and support 3 out of the 5 cities. Not all of them are very big cities, so we decided that we will provide a primary coverage and primary services for these 3 cities, Jeseník, Ústí nad Labem and Karlovy Vary, and we work together with the local authorities, with local businesses and local schools to develop projects where 5G can be used, where we can demonstrate the benefits of 5G. I think we have good stories, especially in Karlovy Vary, because Karlovy Vary, surprisingly, have the best network in the country on Vodafone. So we don't start in Prague, we always start in Karlovy Vary. And we are already developing local solutions with the municipality of Karlovy Vary, transport solution and so on. I'm also proud to show you the first cooperation and co-creation with a private entity, which is Škoda Auto in Mladá Boleslav. Here we developed something we call mobile private network, which is a solution where the customer, in this case Škoda Auto, can define what they need on the network. They define the speeds, the level of security. They have very big control over the network in their environment. We provide the expertise, we provide the technology, but it's really a cooperation between the customer and the operator. This is the first example in the Czech Republic, and we hope we will start to cooperate with other large businesses very soon. I mentioned the purpose pillars, inclusion for all, and I'm really happy that we are providing also digital solutions which, in the first place, do not have any big return, but have very big societal impact. And as a chair of the board of trustees of Vodafone Foundation, this is our most successful project, and actually is the most successful and used Czech e-health platform, unfortunately developed by an NGO, not by a business or government. It's a emergency app which allows you to contact emergency services. You can input the data which the emergency services will see immediately, your allergies and so on. Last year we introduced a new video feature, so the rescuers can ask you to use your mobile phone as an eye for the rescuers, and they can see how the accident site looks like, so they can be well in advance ready to help at the site, which has been used many times, and it's something that we are really proud of. It's also an example of very successful export. This Checkmate app and Checkmate solution was exported and is working in Slovakia, Austria, and Hungary. This single app works across these 4 countries. And also we are cooperating with other countries to expand. The Záchranka app won a Vodafone Group Foundation challenge of 3 million euros, and they will be using this money to expand to further European countries. So that's probably it. I'm really proud to, I was able to present you a couple of projects. There are more of them. If you are interested, please look at our website. We have a special section on our projects on 5G and our sustainability projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. So over to Weston. I think he will chase us because of the time.
Yes. So we're in the home stretch now. We're going to go a little bit over. We have one more question that we wanted to address, and that question is regulation. And the argument in regulation these days is digital sovereignty versus digital alliances. And so what perspective is better from the perspective of big tech? And we have Johan Bernard from Amazon to speak on behalf of all big tech here today, so be responsible. And then we have Andrej Krajicek, who is going to speak as a Czech company, Ysoft, that is global, but started in Brno. And then we also have Alžbeta Krausova there in the corner as an expert on regulation. She's surveying all of us and figuring out how to control us. And then we'll be finished for the day. So thanks for your patience. Johan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. Yeah.
I didn't know I would speak on behalf of everybody.
So you maybe have to change them. But we understood that there was a merger between Microsoft and Amazon last night.
We acquired them this morning, actually. Thank you. Thanks a lot for welcoming me. Thanks AmCham and Microsoft for organizing this event. I'm very grateful to have the chance to speak about a very fundamental topic. Why does a common regulatory environment encourage innovation? It could take us 3 hours if I had more than 5 minutes. So I searched and I was looking for the best definition, and it actually exists. The best definition of the common regulatory framework is the single market. And the single market is not just about free trade. It's about much more than that. We all know that. But Delors, a great European who chaired the EU Commission a few decades ago, was saying that it was also setting a fertile ground for competition that stimulates cooperation, that strengthens, and solidarity that unites. So this is what common regulatory framework is about. And that means that it is about much more than just free trade, but innovation. Amazon has long embraced and made sense of that vision of the single market. We arrived in the 90s in Europe with that vision of a company that would expand and innovate at the scale of the EU. And we did that. Actually, we did that in e-commerce. We did that in logistics. We did that in cloud. We did that more recently. We're doing that still in all of these domains, but also obviously in the field of connectivity and Cooper, as just explained by my colleague Nina. So in all of these cases, the existence of common regulations, of a common regulatory framework, played a critical role, actually, a critical role in enabling that innovation. I'll just take two examples. One is e-commerce, right? Why did e-commerce grow in Europe in the past decades? Well, it's because of the e-commerce directive of 2003, which created a favorable ground, favorable framework that remained stable for decades, and that enabled these investments. We, Amazon, were able to invest 100 billion euros in Europe as part of that effort in just a decade. We also created more than 200,000 jobs in Europe. Direct jobs, permanent jobs, plus 880,000 indirect jobs as part of that efforts across Europe. And these jobs are for companies that are working with or by means of Amazon. And finally, it benefited the European customers, but also without penalizing offline retail, because offline retail, if you look at Eurostat figures, did create during the past decade more than 1 million additional net jobs. That's Eurostat figures. So that's the past. The same goes today for our recent innovation. If you look at Kuiper, well, we also observe that service licensing and spectrum allocation are national in Europe, but they are also harmonized. And because they are harmonized, well, we are able to take a risk, we are able to innovate, we are able to do that in Europe. As Nina was showing on the slide, Europe is in the first deployment geography for our satellite constellation, because in part of the regulatory framework. And obviously that also goes the other way around, meaning that it's not only the single market, it's not only the common regulatory framework that fuels innovation, it can go the other way around. It can be innovation that kind of supports European countries. And this is the case, this was the case very recently. I would like to this respect, to say that we are particularly proud that on July 6th, Amazon Web Services received a Peace Prize for helping to keep vital governmental services operating in Ukraine, which is now, as you know, an official candidate to the EU. So this is just one example. There could be many other examples, but that goes the other way around. Innovation also fuels the goals of European country. And what is true for a large undertaking like us is even more true for SMEs, because for these SMEs, regulatory barriers that multiply compliance requirement by 27 simply act as a definite lock-in within the borders of the domestic market of origin. So what is true for large undertakings is more true for SMEs, right? We're particularly at Amazon sensitive to this because, well, SMBs account for more than half of what is sold on Amazon. So when we win, they win, and when they win, we win. So that's really why we are investing so much on behalf of our customers, but also to serve these SMEs. That was just in 2020, for example, more than 2.8 billion euros in Europe in terms of logistics, in terms of tools, in terms of services, programs, etc. So achieving the EU single market and replicating it at the scale of the digital or EU digital single market that was addressed at the beginning by the Vice Premier and by other officials is key to maximizing the emulation and scalability effects of public and private investments and innovation. And, well, what we have observed as well, right, is that, especially in the past few months and years, is that this vision, that is a long-lasting vision, because as I said at the beginning, it was already the vision 30 years ago about the single market, was tempered by some protectionist trends at EU and global level. And these trends led to uncoordinated national and sometimes EU-level initiatives that tend to fragment the single market and discourage innovation. We are in particular worried about two worrisome trends, right? One is the creation of rules, some of which are included in the DMA and in the DSA that you mentioned at the beginning, that only apply to selected companies, but not to their competitors, which operate on the same market. Secondly, we also observe a growing tendency to tolerate national legislation that infringes the single market or that substitutes the country of origin principle, which means one set of rules across 27 countries for one business, with the country of consumption, which means 27 different sets of rules for each business. And we've seen progress of that principle of country of consumption that will make it more difficult to operate for SMBs and even for large companies like us. So these trends indubitably weaken the single market, because there would be no single market if competing businesses were bound by different rules in the same geography, but also if they had to abide by multiple sets of rules across the EU. And a weaker single market would mean less incentive for risk takers and therefore less innovation. However, and that will be my last point, we want to be optimistic because we observe positive trends as well. At EU level, we observe that the EU Commission is working on an ambitious innovation agenda. You've commented on it, so I will not do this. And also promotes more harmonization in essential domains, such as, for example, VAT. And we also note that the Czech Republic and other EU member states are pushing forward the concept of open strategic autonomy, as opposed to defensive and protectionist sovereignty. And are committed to consolidating and achieving the single market, including in its digital aspects. So we trust that the Czech presidency of the EU Council will make material progress in that direction. And at transatlantic level, we also observe progress with the EU-US TTC, the Trade and Technology Council, which is now up and running and seeks to foster regulatory convergence. We support and seek to act as a contributing partner in these developments, and I would like you to rest assured that Amazon and our ambition is to continue to innovate on behalf of customers in Europe and beyond. Thank you.
Thanks, Johan. Andre?
Thank you, Weston. That would be the one. Do we have a clicker? Perfect. Thank you. So hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you, Weston. Thank you, MChem. Thank you, Microsoft, for having us. My name is Ondřej Krajíček. Business-wise, that's totally unpronounceable, so I go by Ondra. Customers call me Ondra, so feel free to call me Ondra as well. I'm here to talk about Vysoft a little bit. I think that it never hurts to remind what Vysoft is. Vysoft is a Czech company. You know, we have been growing outside of the Czech Republic since approximately 20 years ago. Now we do business in 100 countries. 42% of Fortune 500 companies are our customers. Microsoft is actually our customer. Thank you very much. We do software, hardware, AI, security. Recently, we started projects in robotics, not RPA, but the real physical robots, touching stuff. We have R&D, headquarters, manufacturing in the Czech Republic, which for us is extremely important because we really want to stay here in the Czech Republic and generate value here in the Czech Republic. But we have direct presence in Europe, North and Latin America, and Asia and Pacific, Australia. And I would say what is really unique about Vysoft, we are a self-funded company. There is no venture capital behind Vysoft. There is no private equity behind Vysoft. We have been financing our growth from the money we have made. What I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about our story. How are we going global? and what does it mean from, let's say, the point of view of compliance. But before we get there, let's stop a little bit. Today, everyone talks about unicorns. We want to have unicorns, and we want to have more unicorns. The country performance, business-wise, is measured by the number of unicorns. So we are actually on the map as a country. If you look at the map, the small orange dot right there, that's Czech Republic. We are in the 1 to 10 scale, and we have a few unicorns already. These are unicorns by valuation, which is great. I think it's awesome that such a small country can generate that. But we shall also look at the revenues and billing and profitability of these unicorns, to make them really sustainable. Think Uber, think WeWork, think Theranos. We have also negative examples here. So Wiseau is actually trying to become unicorn, but not by valuation, but by billing and revenues. And this is our journey. As you can imagine, it's great to start in the Czech Republic. It's a great market. We are innovative, smart people, even as customers. We heard from Visa how we are innovative in terms of contactless payments, but the market is small, right? So it's a great place to start, but we need to go bigger. Everyone needs to go bigger than just Czech Republic. And when you do that, one of the entry barriers when you go to the US and when you go to Asia and Japan, Australia, is compliance and regulations and legislation. And that's something that, let's say, smaller companies can really struggle with, because it's difficult to get the experience about these topics. So we are undergoing this, and we have been undergoing this for some time. And I would like to start with some positive examples. Let's not be negative. So actually, harmonization of all these legislations, that's a nice dream, and I think that we will get there. The world is getting there. Just look at the progress of, for example, US GAAP and IFRS. But it's not necessarily always needed. We can start with something, let's say, simpler, something like synergy or compatibility, or just getting some guidance. So, for example, when you start doing ISO 27K, which is a great thing to have, that really opens many doors. And then you look at the US market and you realize that you need RMF compliance, risk management framework. Then you realize they're not the same. They're not even meant to be identical. But you do the first one, and the other one just becomes so much easier. And this is tremendous help for a company of our scale. So that's another example. Is actually GDPR. We all have like a love-hate relationship with GDPR, right? So, but it's actually not that bad, globally, because when you then go to California and then you see their CCPA, and you go to the UK and their data protection laws, and then you realize that there are so many similarities, and that if you get the right partners who are actually able to tell you what the similarities are, you can benefit from that significantly. So that brings me to another example. Australia actually has data protection laws since like 40 years ago. And then there was the GDPR, right? So what they do, they didn't change their laws. The legislation was already good enough for them. But what they do is that they actually provide governmental guidance to their companies. If you're Australian companies, what do you need to do business in Europe? How is this different from what we have in Australia? And that is something very important for Australian companies. And we are in Australia, so we have good experience with that. So that is a positive example. What's missing? What I would like to see. That's my first ask today. I think that you look at the US market. Everyone talks about FedRAMP. FedRAMP is a very important certification if you want to deliver cloud services to the government. There is no such thing here. And what does that mean? It means that there is no open market for companies, and basically everyone who has FedRAMP can deliver government cloud services. We don't have that here. You look at UK, they have their cloud security guidance. Great stuff. They really created a very nice set of guidelines. And this doesn't exist in the rest of Europe, at least not yet. And I think that this is one of the conditions to really create this innovative open market. I actually didn't expect a lecture in software architecture this morning by Martin. I am a software architect, by the way, so I really appreciate that, thank you. But I think that that's just one part of the story. The second one is that we just need to have these guidelines so that we have some level of consistency among all the services, and we don't have that yet, so that's what's missing. The second example which I would like to mention, not so good, I would like to talk about safe harbor, my favorite topic. When I say safe harbor, you probably imagine something like that. Children playing and ships, safely docked. For most of us, it's something completely different. In 2015, we all woke up and the data exchange regulation between Europe and the US, they just disappeared. Poof, magic, hello, it was gone. So then it was replaced a little bit, and then in 2020, it disappeared again. And now it's being replaced again. So as much as I appreciate that we have every right, to have all these lawsuits and to abolish international contracts and treaties that are kind of illegal, this creates a total mess for a company like Wysoft because we are still too small to really be there and understand and know 5 years upfront that something crazy will happen and that we need to be ready for that. And even if we knew, the budget just to be ready for that is enormous. And what about smaller companies? So this is not about preventing the next safe harbor. This is about, just doing it in a more transparent way. And that brings me to my last slide today. And this is my most favorite story of all, and that is, GDPR. So I said love-hate relationship with GDPR. So let's look at that from this perspective, AI. I think that we all know that there is AI race in the world. And there is actually like a competition between the US, China, EU, and I would say India. We are not winning as a region. We are actually losing. And what I appreciate about the situation is that at least we are saying that. Because if you look at the report from European Parliament about AI, 2019, we were the winners. I just checked that in this morning. We were winners. We were winning. Not anymore. This is, among other things, about data. Because the innovation in AI, all the practical innovations, that is fueled by data. That is the gas that you put in and that it explodes and you see all these projects and something useful will happen. Not just research. And GDPR is about data. The problem is, go to the next hackathon about smart cities or just talk to researchers at the university. I can tell you, that the big problem is that people are so afraid of GDPR, scared to death of GDPR, that most projects that can bring something useful, they die even before they start. Because people already assume that GDPR will kill it. I believe, that GDPR is not the problem. The problem is this cloud of fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we have created around GDPR. I read that regulation myself. I'm a software engineer. My background is computer science. It kind of makes sense to me. It's not bad. The thing we created around that is bad. And I think that we can do better and we need to do better. And I'm hoping that with the new legislation, we will do better than just letting us to be so afraid that these regulations which will actually impede and hamper and stop innovation where we need it the most. So that would be my second ask for today. Thank you very much.
Right, so we now have our final presentation, which is going to solve all of our regulatory issues. So we've saved the best for last. We have with us in person Alžbeta Krausova. She's from the Institute of Technology and Law. Is that correct? State and Law. Oh, okay. And then on screen we have Tomáš Šeba from White & Case. And I believe Tomáš is starting off? Yes. Yes? All right. So I hand you this. Tomáš, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity really to address this study audience. It's my pleasure, privilege to be part of this process, and really hope at the end of this brief presentation we will have a clearer picture of the challenges that really lie ahead of us. I will walk you through all without taking up time, but run you through certain aspects and challenges that are in store for us, and then I will hand over the mic to my lovely colleague Alberta from the Institute of Law and State. I will start an overview and move on to the list of what we have achieved and then the hurdles we need to overcome. I understand that you have had to stay focused through many speakers, so I'll my best to really keep it short and simple, bearing in mind the importance of this issue. Fine. So, as far as the overview, first of all, we would like to enter a key word.
So in the meantime, maybe I could get to my 2 slides that are on data processing, data ownership, and artificial intelligence. And we don't have the slides either. Okay, so let me check. Actually, Tomáš prepared most of the presentation. He did a great job. And if you would see those 16 pages that he wrote me with his notes on everything, it's really outstanding. So just allow me to make this. He's back. And Tomáš, we are on ADAS. I just was making you a big advertisement how great you are.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the hiccups. Okay, so if we could move on to these slides, I would like to mention this has really been an immense success. This provides an absolute freedom and opportunity to execute judgments throughout all European countries, especially with the qualified electronic signature. It really made the business transactions easier, and it really made even the governmental authorities accepting this qualified signature as one of the ways for executing the documents. Nonetheless, there is no EU-USA solution which is about it. If we could move on to eIDAS 2.0, which is going to be a big breakthrough and really a landmark example of digital identity movement in the EU, then we will have to talk about eIDAS 2.0, which is new regulations applicable to all citizens with a direct applicable effect, and that's going to be about European digital identity, e-wallet. There's immense use of authentication, submitting tax declarations, hotel check-ins, and should absolutely ease the movement of persons. If we could go to the next slide, please, related to digital public administration, there really have been a number of successes in respect of the Czech Republic. Either checkpoints, or citizens portal, bank ID, e-prescriptions, to name just a few. Still, there are several issues that are not tackled well. Building proceedings, there is a very few bureaucratic processes digitized, and in front of these issues, there is unified digital infrastructure lacking a number of elements. So these are really the challenges not only for this government, but also for further governments to come. If you could move on to the next slide, please, where we deal with digital access to case files. This might seem as a very minor topic, but it's just contrary. We have a number of clients who are being passed, to say it in this way, in a number of long-lasting litigations. And it's really troublesome and really tiring if we have to go and visit the case files in person and not having a chance to simply download the new document from an online repository guaranteed by the state. There are several good steps undertaken in Japan and Slovakia, and not here in the Czech Republic. So the court files, the police files, law enforcement bodies files, and also building office files and other administrative bodies do not offer this possibility to review and investigate the case files online, which seems to be a huge problem nowadays. Last but not least, before I hand my mic over to my lovely colleague Elżbieta, I would like to say a few words about online publication of judgments. As of the 1st of July this year, all courts in the Czech Republic are supposed to publish their judgments in an online database. There have been many calls advocating this as a foreseeable decision-making strategy for the Czech Republic, and also enabling better services for us as authorities towards you as clients. We believe that the system will be perfectly operating, and there will be a very nice and legitimate approach from us as lawyers towards you as clients, giving you a very understandable and foreseeable approach of the court. However, there is not such a progress and not such an advancement on the European level. Although there are initiatives to have a joint case file and joint publication of judgment at the EU level, it still has not come into existence. And there's also the language barrier, which also jeopardizes the whole process. So if ever we are going to talk about some points which we can address better, or what we can achieve sooner or later, that's really getting rid of the language barrier in publication of the judgment, not only throughout Europe, but also elsewhere. There were already presentations about cloud technologies. There were also presentations about GDPR and personal data processing. So, if I may, now I would like to hand over the mic to Elżbieta, who is going to tell you a few things about data ownership and processing, as well as artificial intelligence.
Thank you so much, Tomáš. And now my two slides on one, data ownership and processing, and the next one on artificial intelligence. The aim of this presentation is to show you what barriers should be actually removed so we could head towards the European and US not union, but let's say alliance in building a digital economy. So Tomáš introduced you what has been achieved and where we are headed. I will focus a little bit on the problems that we do have with regard to data ownership and with data processing. In fact, we saw it already in several presentations. With regard to artificial intelligence, we are mostly using machine learning, which is based on data. Therefore, the data legislation is one of the biggest opportunities and also maybe obstacles in the future innovation. The first problem, and we've heard it from many speakers, is that we do have a big complexity caused by various regimes of data processing. We do have personal data, we have non-personal data, we do have data for research, data protected by intellectual property. We do have medical data, etc., etc., etc. This itself poses a huge barrier for businesses to enter the market, and the complexity is really you can see it in the legislation that we have legislation that actually is covering each other, causing much more mess than clarity. It is even more difficult than for US companies to enter our market because the Europeans are kind of, I would say, not get used to this overlapping of legislation, but we are used to European systems. But imagine small or medium US companies that would like to enter this market. We do have we know that the data has an increasing business potential, and what we need to do is to simplify and to find out a way how actually to provide guidelines and how to provide certain mechanisms for the companies to be able to innovate. One of such solutions could be, for instance, data trust and finding ways how to make databases clear of legal regimes or databases that would be easy to access and easy to license. I mentioned here a European strategy for data and two proposals of regulation, Data Governance Act and Data Act. These two acts have been criticized for various reasons. One of them, and the main one, is that they would prohibit, or not, they would not prohibit, sorry, make it much more difficult to share the data among European Union and third countries. Let me say that I am not against regulation. Regulation is needed because without it we would have legal uncertainty. But what we do need is regulation that would actually make it easier. I don't want to say here like blunt words, but let's say we would need certain no, sorry, I will say it in a different way. Why we are talking here together is because United States and European Union, I was distracted by the photo, sorry. These two big powers, we do have similar values. That's why we are talking together. And both of the regulation and actually all of the regulation are providing space for other international agreements. That's why, especially with regard to data, we need to talk more and we need to find common standards that would be acceptable for both for US and European Union, and that would enable us to work together and at the same time would protect European Union from other third countries that do not have the same shared values. Issues that we also need to face are the status of data, the proprietary relationship to data, whether we should set up a property rights or not. There was a big issue with the data producer rights. There was a big debate, and I think we need to debate how to regulate the data and whether and which property rights to give with regard to those data. And data trust and international agreements based on the same values could be the reply. With regard to artificial intelligence, I don't know, I suppose you all heard about the proposal of Artificial Intelligence Act that stirred a lot of discussion. Let me tell that actually the approach of European Union is focused on two main issues, that is safety and liability. Actually, the proposed regulation on artificial intelligence is setting up again many new obligations that might pose again or raise the barrier for entry to the market. I had some discussions with people from MIT, and they said that they practically would not be able to develop algorithms and enter the market. I think we need to, again, talk more and come up with the solution that would be, again, based on values for both EU and United States. There are already tendencies in United States to come up with a Bill of Rights for artificial intelligence. I think we need to get inspired from one another to build a bigger alliance, to build a coalition between our countries. And now the last, there is going to be a proposal for regulation on liability regime for artificial intelligence. It should be published sometimes in autumn, and we will see. Right now, I am basing my speech now on the European Parliament resolution that actually describes liability for artificial intelligence. It respects the approach in AI Act that actually says we should have have two types of systems, like high-risk systems for which we would have strict liability, and then low-risk systems or other systems where there would be fault-based liability. I will probably not comment on that. We really need to make sure that both of the acts will complement one another, not to cause not to stir any more of confusion. And we will also see whether the product liability should change in relationship to the upcoming regulatory changes. Now, there is a last slide on cybersecurity, and I will pass the floor again back to Tomáš.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, cybersecurity has become an important issue for almost all of us, not only for SMEs, not only for large corporations, but European Union legal framework starts to be a little bit more complicated. There is the Cybersecurity Act, there is a new NIS2 directive, which just a couple of days ago was finalized in respect of its wording. And now there is a European Cyber Resilience Act, which is pending in the legislative framework. All in all, the Czech Republic is a pioneer in the cybersecurity, having a number of interesting experts in this area for each and every detail in the area of cybersecurity. But the issue is there is not a standardized template legal framework between the US and the EU. And that really jeopardizes not only investments, but also the certainty. There is not clear certification scheme either for the services nor for the products themselves. So this is really a big issue to foster. And I would like to close our presentation with several other topics which also pose quite a challenge. First of all, it's an FDI regulation. As perhaps some of you know, the Foreign Direct Investment Regulation came into the Czech Republic as late as last year based on the European regulation. And the issue is that there are a number of American private equity groups and investors who keep investing into companies and other assets in the Czech Republic. Unfortunately, there is no mutual recognition of FDI rules with like-minded states like the USA and others, which also jeopardizes the whole process. And it's not only about FDI, it's also about those small things, like electronic data boxes. The Czech Republic was actually one of the first countries in the world which introduced the regime of electronic data boxes. All of us need them, all of us like them, and all of us have the certainty that the government will do it as the embassy. The issue is that there is not a unified system, nor in the European Union and nor on the transatlantic level, which is problematic. And authorized document conversion, likewise. If you imagine that if you scan a document, for example, somewhere in Belgium, and through an authorized system, and can consider such document as a valid original also in the United States, Czech Republic, Bulgaria, and elsewhere in Europe, that's a fantastic notion. So let's simply work on this aspect of digitization as well. And last but not least, it's a matter of fact that if an investor wishes to check either the status of the insolvency register or commercial register, it's almost impossible. The legal framework for each and every state in the European Union differs. It's not interconnected. However, it would be a great success if such an interoperability or interconnection was there. And that's why it's not even possible to check for new development documents or new source documents elsewhere in Europe. And this is really a minor thing which will also allow better undertaking and better business opportunities as well. So, if we move on to the next slide, we just wanted to have the floor for other boys and our Vice Prime Minister and others, really to seize the opportunity and to communicate the most important topics within the digital transformation project and really try to do the utmost to influence the EU legislation and the Transatlantic cooperation. One of the key topics is the cybersecurity area of law, which seems to be the topic number one, but let's address also the others which have just been mentioned. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. It was really a privilege to be there with you. And if you have any questions, me and Andrea, we are more than happy to clear your doubts and help out. Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you, everyone. We're done. Just thank you, Tomasz, for joining us from abroad. And I would particularly like to thank Elżbieta, because Elżbieta has a very important event on Saturday, which is her wedding. And in the interest of digitization, she is now going to give a short description of her husband-to-be, and we're going to vote online to see if we think it's a good idea. Yeah?
Are you questioning my ability to pick a good husband?
No. All right, so we're done. So I'm going to work backwards in summary. So with Tomasz, this fall, we're going to do a series of workshops on many of the issues that, and with Elżbieta this fall, on the issues that were presented. Elżbieta, you have the Solar Conference September...
8 and 9.
September 8th and 9th. So they're going to be speaking about many of these issues. So please join. Okay. So please join the Solar. Then on the company presentations, you saw a lot of ideas about good technologies. I hope that we can follow up with the companies, between companies, and with the government on that. In the first panel, we have renamed the position of the Deputy Prime Minister, so I think that's a big accomplishment. And we also learned that that projects and not strategy are good, and we had a good example of how you can get down to system architecture over technology. Yeah. So thanks again for coming. Violetta, thank you for having us here today. Thank everyone who presented today. Thank everyone who came. There's food outside. Please feel free to eat it and to talk with each other. And again, thanks, Andre, for coming.